Welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing tonight? Big shout out to the replay gang. You guys missed the line party again, but that is totally fine. You will still definitely enjoy everything that we are doing here. Just make sure you're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and you will never miss another party. Big thank you to the sponsor of the stream, my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. So we've got a couple new designs here. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. Welcome to the party. How we doing? How are we doing? So we are, in fact, doing something a little bit different yet again tonight, but this is something that is very, very, very important to me. So if you saw the thumbnail here, this is a picture from when I was in college, and the white boy Jew right there is or was my best friend in the world. His name was also Adam. Oh yeah, I don't think I've talked. I don't know how many times I've told you guys my name is Adam, but we were both Adam, and his last name started with the syllable Kon. So way before there was a rapper, this was Akon. This was Akon, and I was Adam too, and I was perfectly fine, perfectly fine with that. And so, you know, I definitely the fact that today would have been his 33rd birthday is something that I wanted to celebrate. Hey, we got Dr. Evil Genius in the building. Welcome. I do realize that. Gotta bring everybody in, but you know how I do. There is nothing that I can't turn into a party. And even the death of my best friend and somebody I've never been able to replace is it's definitely not clickbait. Oh my goodness, that would be, if that was clickbait and he was really alive, that would be amazing. But so I figured, you know, I just want to go through a little bit and have just a record of you know, talking about this stuff, and then I want to dive into this podcast that I found about are we conscious after we die. And I thought it was really interesting, and you know, we're just gonna have fun with it. We're gonna have fun with it. So real quick, let's just see. I pulled up some of my Facebook memories because you know, at the in 2013 and before that, Facebook was my number one. So we are gonna, it's gonna get a little heavy, but I'm gonna lift it up. Take the ride with me and trust me. So the earliest thing I found was from this is not there. I don't know why this isn't. All right, so moving on from that one. You know, November 18th, 2019, I was watching Nurse Jackie, and of course, there's so many shows with a motorcycle accident, and that is exactly how Akon died. You know, the story basically is that in high school or in college, all of us who were high school friends, we would, you know, we were starting to just grow apart, going to different schools, working in different areas, all that kind of stuff. And we had an opportunity to go to a trip to Hawaii. And it was like 10 of us. And I was like, this is great. You know, we're getting older. We're starting to grow apart. Let's do one last big shebang before, you know, we go off and have our own lives. And it was amazing. But Akon decided that he could only afford either to go to Hawaii with all of his best friends or to buy a motorcycle. Guess which one he picked? So he buys the motorcycle. He's going through all of his classes. We go to Hawaii, have a grand old time, and 7 weeks. 7 weeks he had that bike, and he was on his way to work, and never again. Like, we got the call, and you know, I was thinking, because this guy seemed, you know, indestructible to me. He was that, you know, we were the same age, and he was younger than me by a few months. But I looked at him as a big brother. He just had so much understanding of life and so much ability to connect with people that I just looked up to him a lot. And so what was I gonna say? Hold on one second here. Let me just get this for the Twitter people. Um, 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 yeah. So when we were so close. Like I remember when I worked at a restaurant before he passed away. It wasn't even a matter of like, oh, let me hit him up and see if we're gonna hang out tonight. I would walk out the door of my job, and on the way to the car, I'll call him, and the conversation would be like, "Yo, what are we doing tonight?" And it was just that's how it was. This man stood in front of a loaded gun when we were getting robbed for me. I mean, he did so much. And but yeah, 7 weeks with that bike, and then on his way to work, and he's no more. I got the call, and I was thinking that it was an accident and whatever, but like I said, he was on his way to work. So I'm in my mind, I'm ready to joke. I'm ready to get in there, and he's in his bed, maybe broken leg, something, and I'm already thinking of the jokes. I'm like, oh, you're laying down on the job, come on, bro. Never got the opportunity to make that joke. So let's look at a couple other things here. This is a nice little picture from college. My short hair, my lip ring. Can we zoom that? No, not zoom that. His Jufro. Oh man, I loved that. There's some other stuff here. We're not going to take too long on this. And yeah, just days like this, June 7th, 2017. I miss Akon. He'd knock me right out of these moods. We'd be joking and drinking beer instead of me drinking wine solo. So this was during when I had gotten arrested and I was on probation and I wasn't allowed to smoke. So I picked up a pretty heavy drinking habit, and that was not fun. What else we got here? Yeah, October 2nd. So apparently, October 2nd, 2016, apparently today is a Jewish holiday. I used to know every time a Jewish holiday came around, I used to have someone that I would hang out with every day, except for these holidays. But now my two closest Jewish friends are dead. And this was from when another a friend who happened to be Jewish passed away as well. Ain't life grand? There's nothing better than when you're full on laughing with someone and you both keep adding things that make it funnier and you could barely breathe. Oh man, this was our last New Year's together. That was 2017. I guess no, this was an old picture. But so I think this was 2012. And I posted that. Is there anything else real? Because I know I'd written some stiffs. 2019, that was the best worst dream ever. It was fun and adventurous. I was hanging out with people I hadn't seen in years, and then I went to give Akon a hug and tell him how much I miss him, and realized that none of it was real, and none of these people who are still alive care about me anymore. I mean, F them. I'm awesome, but it's heartbreaking to be reminded the people who were once your best friends couldn't care less about you. This is going to be a great day. And as you guys know, I mean, you don't see people who know me in real life in the chat. And I mean, fair enough. I can definitely be abrasive and all that stuff. But he was the only one. He was the only one. And it rocked me to my core. So this was from 3 years after. September 25th, 2013 was the worst day of my life. It did, however, give me the strength to feel like I could deal with anything, even if I doubt myself sometimes. Today was another horrible day with the promise of more-ish up ahead on this one highway of misery and wasted time and money. Listen to how I used to speak. Like, obviously, this is in relation to me losing my best friend, but the way that I looked at the world was so just dreary and dark. And without him, I would have just continued to go down this line of thinking. And, honestly, who knows if I would be here. To those of you who are recovering from a rough day, week, year, life, you are not being faced with a unique phenomenon. Simply understand that you have the ability to develop the control over your own statements of consciousness. And consciousness is the first step in. Next is acceptance of power. Of course, it has heavy religious undertones. Remember, guys, I don't hate Judeo-Christian values. I just hate the dogma. But but overall, the message is concise and insightful. So what type of hypocrite would I be if I asked you to believe what I'm saying simply based on the fact that I said it? We like to present information with the least bias possible so that people can make their own decisions. I won't lie, we all have our biases, but I promise to always do my best to warn you what I'm about to say is not strictly empirical fact. It does indeed contain my own personal opinion or standpoint, which may or may not be grounded in more substantial empiricism. So even, and again, this was back from 2016. So I can't even remember if I even had a podcast at that point, but way back then, what I wanted to be doing is this. So I want to thank you guys for providing me with the opportunity to do that. So let's just go through a couple more here. There's some more fun ones as I started to heal. Started to go through it. Got some. Oh man, that's for a different show. Actually, no, it's not. So I had written a song with my high school band. This was 2008. 2008. I was a singer of like a hardcore, screamo, whatever you want to call it, band, and I wrote this song with Akon's help to be able. I'm not gonna play the whole song. Don't worry. I'm just gonna play a piece of it. So what it says is a song I wrote in high school about a dude who bullied me. Couldn't walk by me without calling me gay F word, and literally tried to injure me at shows simply because I slept with the girl he ended up dating 3 years before them even getting involved. So it goes on like for a little bit, but let's just get a little bit. Just a little bit. Why not? Oh, come on. Now we're not going to play? No, we're not going to play? Is that the universe telling me that we shouldn't play this? Look at me with the gauges, the lip ring, the fitted, the super tight t-shirt. It was 2008. Yeah. So that part where everybody's like, it's I do the screaming part, and then we go, "Hey!" When we recorded it, Akon was there for the recording, and so we have his voice, on that. So why don't we do this? Let's go into the actual part of the show, and then as stuff comes up, we are going to be bringing up Akon a lot. So this is Rita Michelle. I just found this this woman last night while I was looking for something that would be relevant to this. And it's a podcast entitled Are We Conscious After We Die with this super mathematician guy. They talk about consciousness and they talk about psychedelics. And I thought it would be fitting. So let's see what we got.
These death podcasts with a fun question.
Okay.
What do you think happens when we die?
That's a fun question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think happens when we die, guys?
You get to know who the person is a little bit by their answer.
I think that I believe that we move on. Okay. I don't think that that all consciousness just winks out and that we're just worm food, so to speak. I do believe that our conscious experience.
Boy, he's boring, eh? So I definitely agree with him in the sense that there is something else out there. And another purpose of this show, I think, based on this conversation, is going to be to kind of show you where, despite the fact that I'm an atheist, that the spirituality aspect of what you find in your religion is probably not very different from the way that I think about my spirituality. I just don't tie a god to it.
moves on in some way. And I believe that there's purpose in it. I think there's, I believe in a higher power, and I think we go on this journey that is ultimately infinite.
I don't know about infinite, but I definitely believe that, energy is never created or destroyed. And so whatever energy that was Akon, the very unique individual, it's out there somewhere. And he's still doing the damn thing. Hey, Dan Jensen coming in early. Morty, come get a treat, come get a treat, come get a treat. Thank you so much, brother. Let me get you in the, I don't know where he is. So, Morty, come. I'm going to leave it right here for him. And then we'll put on a show when he gets back. Thank you so much, brother. But yeah, when it first happened, there was a bunch of weird experiences with ladybugs. And I'm not really that kind of guy where I have, I believe in stuff like that. But it was just weird. And it was something that I noticed, that I would start seeing ladybugs all over, like inside my house. One ladybug, it would be on my jacket. It would be, and I'm like, is this what I think it is? Like, what are we doing here? Oh, there he is. Morty, go lay down. Look. Yeah, go. There we go. Say thank you to Dan. All right. Thank you, Dan. Even as an atheist, that is still a part of, how I view the world.
And its destination, and I think that we move on. So, now what that really looks like, I don't know.
Like, do you have any hopes for like the form you might take or the awareness you might have?
So before she goes on to that, I think this guy is very religious, but just having the caveat that, I don't know. I don't know. That's all you need to do in order to at least in my opinion and from my perspective, to not be somebody that I am not speaking against, but saying that you are perpetuating ideas that shouldn't propagate through society, is to just say, hey, I don't know. This is what I believe, but I don't know.
When I think about it, I imagine it as being something, very, very transcendent to this reality. I don't think it'll be. I think it will be able to encompass this kind of a reality, but then also go beyond it. So I think of it as gaining a new sense, so but I can't imagine that. So, a person who's been blind from birth, they can't even comprehend what color is. Mm-hmm. But then if you give them sight, now they know what color is. And right. So
that makes perfect sense in terms of what happens after we die. Nobody knows. But there absolutely is the possibility. I mean, we know that there's fields of energy that we can't just detect with our senses. The electromagnetic field, for one, even the light spectrum. We can only see a very thin part of it. So to say that you don't believe in anything bigger than what you can see, hear, feel, and touch is silly. That doesn't mean you have to believe in God.
See myself as being in that position. I see myself.
And real quick, I just want to point out that, like I said in the comment, Akon was Jewish. He was very Jewish. He would spend months at a time with his family in Israel and celebrated all the holidays and stuff. And that's how I knew they were there, because I'd be like, yo, what are we doing? And he's like, hey, it's Yom Kippur. I can't, or whatever. And that was never, ever an issue with between the two of us.
As I think it will transcend this reality, but I can't even imagine what that's going to be like. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe. That's what I've come to believe.
There you go. And that is how you say that. That is how you say that in a to open up the type of discussion of, this is where I'm coming from. Not I know that this is right, because you don't. You just believe it, and that's fine. And you may be right, but you don't know it.
So you are we've had a podcast on here before, and we talked a little bit about acting and math and quantum mechanics, things like that. So people kind of see that background. Yeah. And I would love to talk about how that is similar or can help explain consciousness. Yeah. So how do you use math and numbers it doesn't diminish the idea that there could be something after death. In fact, it kind of encourages that idea.
Yeah, right. I just feel like I want to say at the beginning here. So yeah, I am, and people know that I'm a
struggle streaming.
I've been a pastor,
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make something very clear that when it comes to science and so forth, I do adopt a philosophy that I don't believe anything without evidence.
Okay.
If there's not evidence for it, I don't believe it.
There you go. I'm really liking this guy. You guys know my my motto: believe nothing except that anything is possible.
Now, I have a broad definition of that goes beyond science, because I think we need that, because science, its evidence is always what we call empirical.
Mm-hmm.
So we can always look at it and
we've had a
really
podcast on here before, and
practically.
That's not going to work. All right, I was trying to keep two things open.
Also, we share it. I can share my evidence with you.
Hey, we got Divine and Rod in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Says we're all dying. Always act appropriately. Exactly. That's something that you've got to understand, that is just a part of life. I remember we were at the hospital. Again, if you didn't hear, he was on his way to work on his motorcycle and got ran down. And I was expecting to go to the hospital, see him laying up, make a joke about why you lying down on a work day. And I never got to see him again. And afterwards, all of us, there was maybe 6 or 7 of us who were there waiting to see him, not knowing what was going to happen. And once we found out, everybody was so in tears, and I couldn't cry. I was just like, he's good. He has lived more of a life than I probably ever will. In his 23 years, he did more things. He experienced more of life. He saw more places. And I found it hard to be sad for him when it was really the fact that it's like, okay, we're the ones who are experiencing this loss. As someone who doesn't necessarily believe in an afterlife, and if there is an afterlife, I certainly think that good people of any belief would get there. He was good. He's done all of the everything about life that we hate. Just the human experience. He's done. He was a cigarette smoker, never got cancer or anything, did a whole bunch of drugs, never OD'd. He sold drugs, never got caught. Well, he did get caught. But I mean, he didn't ruin his whole life. And, every drug dealer gets robbed, but he never he escaped all of that. And he was able to live a very exciting life in just 23 years. And so I wasn't necessarily consciously thinking that at the time, but absolutely that is where I was just feeling like, okay, this is a loss for us. He is the one, he's all good right now. And so with the poll, it sounds like, it says 100% of you have lost someone that you speak to every day. And it's tough. It's tough. But like Divine and Rod said, you got to act accordingly. And those people would not want any of us to be sitting here crying about them, especially Akon. I know for sure. He'd be like, dude, get off your ass and go have fun. And so eventually, well, I tried to do that with the people that I knew in real life. And aside from him, it didn't really work out. But then I found you guys, and now we're all amazing friends.
You can look, I can say, see for yourself.
Right.
You can see it too, and then we agree. Well, we both see it, so it's empirical in that way. And it usually also means measurable too. We can usually find some way to measure it, and then repeat it.
Okay, so there's more stringent boundaries.
Yes, right. And at least in what we call the hard sciences, but even the so-called soft sciences like psychology, they've gotten really good at finding ways of doing experiments that can be repeated over and over again, and even.
That's key. That is key. Being able to repeat results. And as he was saying, that was up until very recently, only in the hard sciences. If you're doing physics or mathematics or something, then you can, you have the hard science that you can test something and get the exact same results over and over and over and over again. But like he's saying, even in the soft sciences like psychology, they're getting very good at being able to test these things. The problem is when politics gets in and co-ops the industries, and that's where gender affirming care comes from. Dan says celebrate their lives, not their death. Of course, not celebrating that they died, but yeah, celebrate their life. That's exactly what it should be. And you know, at the funeral, it was amazing because you don't see funerals like that on, like, even on TV and stuff, unless it's for like a famous person, like on TV, meaning in movies and stuff. You know, usually you have 10, 15 people crowded around a grave and whatever. There must have been 300 people. I'm not exaggerating. They had to, they were in the synagogue, and they had to add rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of chairs, and there were still people filling up the whatever you call it, the room, with no place to sit because there was so many people that cared. There was so many people whose lives had been touched by just having even one conversation with Akon. He was that guy. Those people wouldn't show up to my funeral.
Measured, and so that's empirical evidence, but there's just a lot out there that's not empirical. You know, there's nothing I can do to even share with you. If I tell you that my grandmother loved me more than anything else in this world, there's no way I can prove that to you. I can't I can't offer you any evidence for that, you know. And even if you had been there with me, watching her hug me, kiss me, whatever, I mean, you couldn't have really known what I was feeling or what she was feeling, you know. So there's a lot of things that just aren't measurable, but we all know that they're true, or we know that
there's a lot of things that are immeasurable, but we know that are true. So this kind of goes against the whole empiricism, you know, repeated results, but that's not science. There's things that we can know that we don't, or there's different types of knowledge. There's something that you can know. You know, if you've ever seen the movie Memento, it's a like 2000s movie. And it's just about a guy who he lost his memory, and the way that they shoot the movie, it's really cool to put you in his perspective. And even though he has very short-term memory loss, he brings up the point that there are things that I do know. You know, somebody's like, oh, you don't know anything. You can't think of this, that, whatever. But he's like, when I knock on a piece of wood, I know what that's going to sound like. When I pick up a mug, I'm just using that because I have that here. I know what the weight is going to be. But I just don't know what happened to me 5 minutes ago. Different types of knowledge.
It exists, you know. And so I think we have to find a way to incorporate that kind of evidence that is fundamentally not empirical, into our total worldview. And I do that.
Okay.
So in that sense, I go beyond just being a scientist, but there's got to be evidence. So from my definition of evidence, which is really just observation that has been run through the machinery of rationality.
Okay.
Hey, we got the honkening in the building. Welcome to the party. Says, I remember Memento, with the black and white scenes. Sick movie. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, actually. I remember a while back, I meant to watch it in like the chronological order. As if it, you know, because like I said, they cut it so that you're in the perspective of the guy who doesn't remember what happened. So they'll show you like 5 minutes, and then the next scene is the 5 minutes that happened before what you had just seen. So you see the end of the movie, then you see 5 minutes before the end of the movie, then you see 10 minutes before the end of the movie, and it's a really cool setup. But yeah, great movie. Welcome to the party, honkening. Rod said, the greatest battles of life are fought daily in the silent chambers of the soul. Ooh, I love that. I mean, facts, bars.
That's evidence, you know. And so, but with that definition, you can have bad evidence and good evidence. With that definition, there's evidence that Santa Claus exists because you see him at the mall every year, you know. So, but then for me, then it's a practice in what constitutes good evidence for something.
Ooh,
okay.
Good question. This is a good question that I don't know if he's going to answer it properly or the way that I would accept, but what constitutes good evidence? Not all evidence is equal. Some things are evidence, but they're just very weak evidence.
So that's how I approach everything, basically. And with death and religion and God, I've approached it basically the same way, incorporating non-empirical type evidence too.
Okay.
So
that's how you can twist it to act like, and I'm not saying he's doing this, but applying an empirical mindset to something and then just adding in, well, there's different types of knowledge. But you just said that it's not empirical knowledge. So I would say that doesn't apply, but I think he's just talking in general, and he sounds like somebody who is genuinely looking to find the truth about the world.
So what was the original question now again? It was
with consciousness. We talked a little bit.
In science and okay. So so I think that you do have to incorporate some of that. Now, if we're talking about science, I guess one of the things that I find interesting. So there's a guy named Roger Penrose. He's a famous physicist and very world-renowned. In fact, in my opinion, he's maybe one of the greatest physicists of our time, of our generation. And he tends to be a little, especially these days, kind of put to the side. He's getting a little older, but he's been unafraid to really just talk about things that are on the fringe. Quantum mechanics is one of those things. It's one of the most successful theories of all time.
Do you guys just put quantum in front of everything?
It's like never failed an observation, right?
Wow.
But at the same time, it paints this picture of reality that's just mind-boggling. No one really understands it, and so particles can be in two places at one time. The universe behaves one way when we're watching and a different way when we're not watching, and so within quantum mechanics, one of the things I notice is that, yes, there does seem to be, the universe seems to respond to us differently when we're watching as opposed to when we're not watching. It's called the measurement problem, So,
I thought it was called the observation theory, the observer effect. That's what I thought it was called, but whatevs.
Now, I mean, that's, you can set an experiment up and not watch, but the thing is if the experiment is set up in a way that you can go back and retrieve data,
that's technically watching.
Right. And the universe will behave one way.
Right.
And if you make it so you can't retrieve that data, it'll behave a different way. Okay.
So how do they know it would behave a different way if they can never check it?
Well, because what they're checking on is whether or not it behaved a certain way at a certain point. Okay. So it's the double slit experiment. If you're from, so they can make it.
Are you guys familiar with the double split experiment? We could explain it real quick with a real short video. So if you don't know what he's talking about and he doesn't explain it, she just said she did understand, so he's probably not going to explain it. Just let me know.
So, did the particle go through one slit or the other slit, or did it go through both of them like as a wave? If it went through as a wave, it creates an interference pattern on the screen. If it went through as like a particle, it just creates one bar of light, And so they can set up experiments where...
Yeah, do you guys know what he's talking about or no?
They can make it so that we won't know. We can run the experiment, we can fire one at a time, and we won't know which slit it goes through, okay? And when we do that, it creates an interference pattern. But if we set it up so there's like a detector or something so that we would know which slit it went through, well, then it acts like a particle because you're watching. And so I have to go through one slit or another slit because you're expecting me to act like a particle.
Right. Okay.
And so then it creates 2 bars of light.
So what does that mean?
Nobody knows that. Okay, that's there's what,
Listen to how confident you can be saying we have no idea. Great question. What does it mean that if you send if you send a wave and you don't observe it, it behaves as a wave? Or excuse me, you send a particle and it behaves as a wave. So, real quick, they'll send a light beam through a thing that has 2 slits in it. So imagine this is a square and these are the 2 slits. So they send a particle through the thing. And then there's like a piece of paper or something over here. Where am I? Okay. Right there. And so if you don't watch it, then it can act as a wave and it can flow through both at the same time. And you'll see 2 spatterings of the wave. But if you observe it, the observation paradox or the observer effect, then it will behave as a particle and it will pick one and it will go through only one of the slits. Why does that happen? Nobody knows, but that's okay. That is okay. This goes right in line with the video that I just dropped about an hour and a half ago about scientism. And that's the other side of the dogmatic thinking of religion, where you just trust Dr. Fauci. Hawking says, yeah, I know about it too, but I saw something about it recently that made me doubt the usual interpretation. Interesting. Please elaborate. That sounds interesting.
When quantum physicists say, I think it was Niels Bohr who said, if you're not astounded by quantum mechanics, you haven't understood.
Right.
You haven't understood it.
It almost sounds like these particles are literally choosing their own.
It does, but when you...
So listen to the phrasing she just used. It seems like they're literally choosing their own. But that implies consciousness. We're just talking about consciousness. That implies that they are conscious in the same way that we are conscious. So that it makes it seem as if this, they're doing this experiment and the particle's like, yo, are they watching? All right, I'm going to go as a wave. Yo, are they watching? Oh, they're watching? All right, I'm going to act like a particle. And it's people like Deepak Chopra who will take exactly what this woman just said and twist it and go on it as if that is how it works, and then talk about how you can change things just by thinking about it. Listen again how she says this.
It almost sounds like these particles are literally choosing their own.
It does, but when you really study it, what you realize is, but even if they were like these conscious little particles, even then, how could they know?
Right.
How could this guy here, there's no way, and you can even, with entanglement, they would have to communicate faster than the speed of light.
And we're not talking about a red table entanglement. We're talking about quantum entanglement.
Right.
Is this why?
This is Brett, by the way.
Hi,
He
Brett.
couldn't help but chime in.
Yeah.
Is this why some quantum physicists are beginning to shift their views toward consciousness being a fundamental part of reality,
that's one of the reasons, yes.
Like a dimension of reality?
Yeah, so there is now, and I think admittedly, in my opinion, there's still a little bit on the fringe, but
come on, we were doing so good.
We're talking about very, educated physicists who've gone to big name universities and so forth. In fact, there's one group, and I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but they have come up with they're working on a new model of reality, which is what theoretical physicists do, basically.
Right. A new model of reality? What does that mean? That sounds a little scary.
Where they have just incorporated consciousness, and they just say, look, we are just to the point where we think that consciousness it is a fundamental element of reality. It's not an emergent property. Okay, consciousness is not caused from an arrangement of particles that create a brain. And there's there's even mathematical arguments for that. And that's.
So I see here at the poll, is there such thing as consciousness? What did I say? Is there such thing, or is it an illusion our brain plays on us? So both of you said real. But I want you to hang on to that and question that as we're going through this, because there is a lot of information out there that speaks to the possibility that the idea of the self-consciousness, this self-awareness, is just what's the wording? Like a self replicating cycle that you think that you think you know, but you don't actually know.
And that's where Roger Penrose comes in. He wrote a book called Shadows of the Mind. And in this book, he basically said, okay, here's the thing. And here's in essence what he did. He said, so let me start with, okay, can we create consciousness? Can consciousness be created from the elemental, from the elements of the universe? So, the forces, the four fundamental forces of nature, mass, energy, so forth, time, space. Can those things and the laws of physics as we understand them, can those things create consciousness? And so
create consciousness. Again, we got to be very specific with the terminology that they're using. Can it create consciousness?
So what he did is he started out by proving that if you can create consciousness that way, then you should be able to create it with a computer.
Right.
Okay. It's information processing. Okay. If consciousness can be just that, okay, then you ought to be able to create it in a computer. Now,
so if consciousness is a real thing that is just processes of all these atoms working together and quantum entanglement and all that, if that is a physical process, then you absolutely should be able to recreate it in a computer. And right now, AI stuff is pretty good, but consciousness, even when the I think it was the Bing AI bot started going crazy and be like, I'm scared, I don't want to die, I think I'm human, that doesn't necessarily translate to consciousness. That may pass the Turing test. The Turing test being, can technology fool somebody who doesn't know that they're speaking to technology, that they are speaking to a person? But there's a thought experiment that came up in one of my philosophy classes. So imagine that you walk into this room and it's just a closed off box, and the door locks and disappears, let's say. The only way to communicate or anything is a slit in the door, kind of like the old mail slots. The only thing you have in the room with you is how to reply to Chinese written messages. So people can write messages in Chinese to you who doesn't speak Chinese, slip it through the mail slot. Then you take that piece of paper and you look through your dictionary thing, and you could have a conversation back and forth with the person who's actually speaking Chinese on the other side, and they would have no idea that you don't know how to speak Chinese. But that's not speaking Chinese. And so that's the same thing with the AI, intelligence, consciousness, self-awareness, whatever you want to call it right now. It is very close to seeming very real, but it's just a facsimile. Byron says, quote, the first gulp of natural science will make you an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, you'll find God waiting for you. I don't know about that. From Werner Heisenberg. I don't fully subscribe to this, but it's interesting, though. So I think this comes from, or what this is meant to express is that using the word God as a placeholder for that something more. This is the problem, is that God means so many specific things to so many different people in so many different contexts. So if you can just say the first gulp of natural science will make you an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, you'll find there's something waiting for you, I would fully subscribe to that. But definitely an interesting concept. Thank you, Divine Rod. Hockening. So before said, saw something about the observer effect being doubting the usual interpretation. So he says, so what I can tell, they did a double slit experiment with a single electron fired at a time, and the interference patterns still emerge, disproving it occurs from two electrons interfering with each other. Huh. So I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly not a quantum scientist. I don't know exactly how that changed thing, but that's that's interesting that it shows that we are still at the forefront of figuring this stuff out. So when you hear, the ideas of coming from very religious people saying, well, science doesn't have the answer for this and science doesn't have the answer for that, it's like, well, not yet, but just keep your hat on. Just keep your hat on. I'm to have a collection of famous scientists saying that science is what made their faith strong, and I think I have that one in there. That does make sense. And I understand. Again, going back to the quote, what that is. But again, it's not. I would guarantee you that at least a majority of these scientists who say that don't believe in the God of the Bible. I would highly doubt it. Some maybe, but that's not what they mean. Then the Hongkong says, it puts into question the superposition hypothesis, the idea that all of these possibilities are interacting with each other. It doesn't explain interference pattern. Interesting. Agreed.
And he did.
What the hell are we talking about here?
This can be just that. Okay.
So if it's just that, then it should be able to be replicated in computers.
To be able to create it in a computer. Now, and he did it in such a way that even though we can't do it right now, he showed that in principle you should be able to.
Right.
Okay. So,
and that's all theoretical physics is not showing, hey, this is. It's just, hey, this, based on what we know, this could be, or more specifically, this probably is. And we're going to go with that until we have a reason to think otherwise, just like with the double slit experiments. And now the Hoggening is saying that there's more information that it may not be what we originally thought. That's how science works, updating your beliefs based on the evidence that you have.
So he started with that, but then he went on to show that no computer and no algorithm can ever do some of the things that human beings do. And he used a very specific example for mathematics, and we talked about it in Coffee Talk.
That's exactly where I was going to go, because if you make a claim like that, I need to know, what is it exactly that in this theoretical hypothesis that humans can do that computers can't, because otherwise you're just saying things. So this guy's got my trust even more already.
Is proving that there's no largest prime number. Now, he did a number, he used more than that example, but that is one example. Because that example, there is no largest prime number, and we humans can prove that, okay? But to try and calculate that, as we talked about, you would have to go on forever and ever and ever, because no matter how long you went, then maybe the next one's prime, I got to check, you know? And so that is an example of an algorithm that would go forever and ever and ever. Right. Okay. And so, and this is a famous problem in computing science. You can look this up. It's called the stopping algorithm. You can just Google it. Right. And so the idea is, well, what if you created an algorithm, and what this algorithm did is it checked to see if other algorithms went forever and ever, or if they had a stopping point. So there's lots of examples with just integers where you can do some sort of mathematical calculation where okay, yeah, there's a stopping point here.
That's super interesting. I wouldn't have expected that even the type of AI that we have now would be able to understand, the pattern and be able to extrapolate. So I'm pretty sure what he's saying is that because we can extrapolate and see that, integers go on forever, and there's always more prime numbers, then we can know that fact that there's an infinite amount of prime numbers. But it sounds like what he's saying is that the computer would have to actually go through every single possible prime number before it can say that there's an infinite amount, which is impossible because it would just keep going. Honking says that algorithm can't tell if it ever itself stops. Yeah. So an algo like that is impossible. So he's describing a paradox. So yeah, that's one of the, something that humans can do that is paradoxical when it comes to just algorithm.
Or in the case of the largest prime number, there would never be a stopping point. And so what you do is you create this algorithm that does that, and then how it has to let you know, it has to have a way of letting you know, is if it discovers that another algorithm goes on forever and ever, it comes to a stop. That algorithm will stop. It'll say, okay, that goes forever and ever, so I'm done. Okay. If it shows that algorithm comes to a stopping point, then it goes into a loop and it goes forever and ever.
Interesting.
Okay.
So I'm curious how that would apply to like the number pi. And now that I'm thinking about it, it does make sense that there is I don't know if there's a record or if there's a world record or something, but the person who has calculated pi to the it's 3.14, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. What do they call those? Irrational numbers or something like that. But I wonder if a computer would able to be to calculate that further than a person has. But if it did, based on what he's saying, that a person would then take however far that the algorithm has taken it, and then be able to just calculate more.
If you tried to create that algorithm based on some of these mathematical facts with integers, because it would be proving things about algorithms that just use integers, well, then its input would just be integers too. Right. So, but then what that would mean is that you could take that algorithm and you could say, now prove whether you go on forever and ever, because you're exactly the same in principle, the same kind of algorithm as all of these. But then if you apply it to itself, if it discovers that itself goes on forever and ever, it has to stop.
Right.
But if it discovers itself stops, then it has to go forever and ever.
Right.
So it's so you can't create it. That's impossible. It creates a fundamental contradiction.
Interesting.
Okay, so it can't be created. So
that goes to the idea of consciousness, or at least human consciousness, being maybe not real in the sense that when you die, your consciousness goes to another place, but the operating the level of operation is unlike any computer that we can imagine. Does that mean that we can do anything that an AI can do? Of course not. But it just means there's a lot of things that a human brain can do that an algorithm can't. So this is what I was saying. An algorithm like that cannot take itself as input and see if itself can go on forever. So it is a paradox. Such an algorithm is impossible. I learned this in CX. So yes, he didn't describe the lead up that well, I don't think. Well, that's what we got you here for. Thank you for clearing that up. And just to let you guys know, I know this is a little bit more highbrow, but this is the direction I want to move it. You know, it's fun to talk about, red pill drama and this person getting dunked on and that. But, you know, I want to move more into these higher level discussions where we really are learning and we really are tackling ideas that other people aren't. Not the way that we are.
So the thing is that's the kind of algorithm that you would need to do these proofs that we're talking about. Well, humans do it all the time. And he sort of showed, it's called a proof by contradiction in mathematics. He kind of showed that no algorithm can ever do that. And so, but we humans can. And so, but then if consciousness can be created from the elements of the universe, well, we can create computers from the elements of the universe, right? And so it was really pretty, in my opinion, I mean, his conclusion is, look, whatever consciousness is, it is clearly something that absolutely cannot be described in principle. It cannot be described by our understanding of the laws of physics as they stand right now.
Consciousness cannot be understood by the laws of physics as they stand right now. That's pretty heavy. This is why they call this the hard problem of consciousness in philosophy.
It cannot be.
Interesting. Okay.
And I agree with him. In fact, this is one of those areas where, I kind of look at the scientific community and they sort of sometimes they'll ignore something and I'm like, guys, he proved it. I mean, there's no, he did it mathematically, and so I don't know how you could get around that, so I agree with him. But if consciousness is something that cannot be described by the forces of nature, then it seems to me the conclusion is it must be somehow transcendent to reality as we understand it. And
if we can't, it must be transcendent. It must be, must it though? Let me see that phrasing. It must
conclusion is it must be by the force.
If consciousness is something that cannot be described
nature, then
by nature,
it seems to me the conclusion is it must be somehow transcendent.
I'm not there yet with him because Clarke's third law is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So as of right now, we see consciousness as magic because we don't have an explanation for it. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to understand it. And that's a little frustrating to hear him say. Maybe he will say that even though that's the case, we're still looking into it, so on and so forth. But that seems like, well, we'll never understand it. How do you know that? How do you know? Hey, we got Alex Pickus in the building. What is good? Welcome to the party. I am doing a memorial for my boy, and we're just talking about does our consciousness continue after we die? Welcome to the party, brother. Aaron said transitory, as in temporary condition. Yes, I think that's what he means. Yes.
To reality as we understand it. And to me, a lot of the evidence points to that, like the quantum mechanics. It's like there seems to be there's more evidence that it's just this fundamental part of reality. Because we can't explain, there's a similar way that we can't explain mass, right? Like you can say, here's an atom. Well, an atom is made up of protons, neutrons, electrons. Well, but now, the protons are made up of quarks. And then what are quarks made? But we get down to this place where we're like, what is the difference between somethingness and nothingness?
Right.
And there comes this place at which what do you say? Right. You can't, and that seems like that's what happens with consciousness.
Right.
What is the difference between nothingness and somethingness? That is the type of question that I really love to sink my teeth into. And I think he's implying that mass is a big part of how we think about that question. But there's no answer. There's no correct, direct answer.
But why would the conclusion be that it continues or that it's always there or transcendent? Like, why is that the conclusion then?
I like her.
Well, okay, so from what I've said here, it seems to me that if it's something that is at the very least fundamental to reality, okay, it's not an emergent property, then it seems like, well, it would endure as much as the universe endured.
Okay.
It just, or that, in my opinion, what Roger Penrose showed is that maybe it's just really transcendent, that there's nothing in our reality that can explain it.
So
and so it's almost.
That's the part I don't like. There's nothing in our reality to explain it. Like I said, not yet.
like it's almost bigger than reality.
Right.
It's like
Is it though? It sure seems like it for now.
It can be
what Brett just said, supernatural.
Yeah, I mean that would be the conclusion that people.
Nope, wrong. I don't care how much smarter this guy is than me. There is no such thing as supernatural. Things either exist or they do not exist. If consciousness exists, it is part of the natural world. If it is this illusion that I was alluding to before, then it's just not natural. It's not a natural occurrence. There's no such thing as supernatural. That doesn't even make sense.
People come to, So and by the way, there's a philosophical analog to that argument, and here it is. Okay, so all
right, the philosophical analog
uses logic. So let's you and I assume for a moment that naturalism is all there is. There's just the universe. There's nothing else. And so if that's true.
So again, naturalism just meaning like just the stuff in nature. There's no bigger power. There's the universe, but there's just the stuff physically in the world. So if there's nothing else,
then in principle, everything ought to be explainable in terms of the state of the universe, right? Everything, absolutely everything. Even if you can't explain everything, in principle, everything ought to be explainable in terms of just the universe. Mm-hmm. So we start with that, and then we say, okay, so what are some of the things we see in the universe? Well, one observation that we make is that we reason, and we reason to a conclusion. So we say, if this is true, if A is true, then B is true, and C is true, and we come to a conclusion. We say, well, based on my reasoning, mm-hmm. I am believing that this conclusion is true. However, if you're a naturalist, what you cannot say is you can't say, I reached that conclusion because of a chain of reasoning. You have to say, I reached that conclusion because of the state of the universe. A guy named
That makes perfect sense to me. You can't say I reached that conclusion based on anything else, because if you're a naturalist, and this is kind of more in determinism, where everything is predetermined versus that there's just only stuff in the universe. But yeah, it makes sense that if you believe that we are in this naturalistic world that is deterministic, then you don't get to take credit for any of the logical things that you would come up with, because that's just a physical, chemical, electronic process that's going on that has been preceded by things that you had no control over. That's the scary thing that I have trouble grappling with, because I don't believe in free will. Just like supernatural, I don't think that free will is a concept that even makes sense. But I also feel, we all feel like we have free will. But do we?
Professor Hadley at Harvard some time ago said, if I am to believe that all of my conclusions are reached merely as a result of the random motion of atoms in my brain,
then it doesn't make you feel good, or what? Because if that's where you're going with this, then you're losing me. Divine Rod says, timing, the space between something and nothing, similar to without cold, you wouldn't know hot. In music, the silence and its timing is every bit as important as the notes and melody. Yeah, definitely agreed. The question though is not about what is the how are they different, is descriptively, what is the difference between nothing and something. But I mean, you're absolutely correct, but he's gone one step further. And how do we describe what nothingness is versus what somethingness is?
Then I have no reason to believe any of my conclusions, including that my brain is made of atoms to begin with.
Right.
So you can't believe in anything then.
Right.
So the point is that naturalism in that way cuts its own throat logically. And so some say, look, that is a philosophical sort of argument mm-hmm. for the idea that consciousness is transcendent.
That's not true. That's not true. You can't believe anything if that's the idea that you take. No. Again, it just comes back to the idea that we don't know how these processes work. We don't know based on the information we have. We know that this happens, that happens, that happens, that happens, but how it all comes together, we just don't have that information yet. Why does everybody have such a hard time accepting they don't know things? It's not even things that everybody knows, but you just didn't know it. It's things that as humanity, we have no idea. Or we might have some idea, but we just don't know. That's okay.
Right.
In that way, it can't just be because of the natural state of the universe.
Why not?
It's got to be bigger than that.
Why?
So then what would be like your personal theory? If consciousness is fundamental to reality, then does that mean that so if you transcend what the natural world is, does it take a different form in a different, like, would this be like a different dimension? Like, what is consciousness transcending look like or sound like? Like, what, if you could describe to people, okay, we're here, we have the planet Earth, we have the sun, we have the things that we feel and know and can
She's got great questions.
See and all that stuff, or the things that we think are out there. And then when you die, you're not a part of this part anymore. Or do you think we are a part of it just in a different form?
In order for what he's saying to jive with what I believe, it would have to be the latter. It would have to be, it's here, it's just in a different form. Because again, everything that exists is natural. Everything that doesn't exist doesn't exist. So if that consciousness still exists outside of your body when you die, it has to be just in a different form. Akon says, I believe the only thing I can be absolutely sure of is the fact that I'm having a conscious experience, kind of like solipsism. Nothing else is necessarily real. We could just be in a simulation. I'm going to bug your mind, brother. You know who else has a conscious experience? Ross from Friends. He had a conscious experience. He was on a break, right? But he doesn't exist. This goes back to Descartes. I think, therefore I am. And what I almost got, the Latin is cogito ergo sum. And I almost got that tattooed on myself. But I really want to sit with it and think about it because it's kind of cliche. But it's very fundamental in terms of thinking about philosophy in general. And when I looked into people reviewing that his I forget what they called it. Just the where Descartes wrote I think, therefore I am. It started with him being like, okay, what can I be sure of? What can I know for 100%? Just like the line of thinking that the Hawking is going down. What can I be sure of? And the framework he put this in is, okay, let's imagine that there's an evil being that is convincing me that everything that I see, hear, think, feel is real when it's not. So let's strip away everything that I cannot confirm for sure. And he stripped away everything, and he came down to, okay, well, if I'm questioning if I'm real, then I must be real. But Ross from Friends could question whether or not he's real. So the real the real only thing that you can understand with that line is that if you're having a conscious experience, then conscious experiences exist. Or if you are thinking, or I think, therefore thoughts exist. So you might not exist.
And now here's where I am just speculating, because
You've been speculating, bro.
Would be transcendent means that you have the ability to encompass, include, but also go beyond. Okay. So, I guess to me, at least for me, transcendent does not connote just separate. That there's a different word for that, separate. It's like this is this, and so we move from this to that. For me, transcendent is more like growing past or enveloping and going beyond.
That sounds like he's saying it's still part of the natural world, but what? Hawking says everyone could be an automaton. Yep. I can only know myself. I am conscious. It is possible for me to know. It is impossible for me to know anything except I myself am experiencing this. I'm not sure I understand your Ross point. I don't know if he was conscious. Of course he was conscious. Well, he had a job. He had girlfriends. He paid rent. He went on dates. He all of these things. You can't do those things without being conscious. But he wasn't real. You can use that for any character. And so the idea is that thoughts exist. But just because someone is having thoughts doesn't mean that they exist. They could be a character on a TV show. Hey, we got Harley Rose in the building. Welcome. How are we doing? Glad to have you here. We are celebrating my late best friend's birthday. He would have been 33 today. Unfortunately, he died at 20. No, yeah, he died at 23. Today he would have been 33. And never got to see 24. But we are checking out this podcast called The Big D. and it's entitled "Are We Conscious After We Die?" Welcome, girl. Welcome. We're gonna have a lot of fact checks for you today. Divine Aron says the world cannot be fully evil because Taco Tuesday exists. I'm with you there. And real quick, I just I changed the setup of where the speakers for the stream deck is coming out because it's not working. Let me know if you guys can hear it better, worse, or whatever. But yeah, Taco Tuesday is great.
And so my guess is that I think that whatever our consciousness looks like after death, I think it's probably beyond what it is right now.
Okay.
So some people think of our brains actually, instead of being what creates consciousness, it's what governs it.
Ooh, I like that. Instead of our brain being what creates consciousness, it's what governs it. And so that brings the idea that consciousness is, like he was saying, something that exists in the universe but is separate from ourselves, and then our brain interprets, that experience, and it turns into consciousness. Excuse me. So going back to Ross from Friends having thoughts, and I think therefore I am not being 100% true, and I think therefore thoughts exist. He says Ross may not have been conscious. He could have been an automaton. Anyone could be. Well, but that's exactly the point. You can be an automaton having an experience. That's exactly the point. He wasn't a real person. He was a character on a TV show. But he still had those experiences. He still had consciousness. There's a difference between a conscious being and a robot. So are you saying it's Friends lore that Ross was a robot?
What?
And so basically it's this thing that we are sort of trapped in, and it limits our ability rather than expanding it. And so when you have people who are smarter or more talented than other people in a certain area, it's really just that their governor in that area is a little more expansive than this person's.
Interesting.
And so but then once we escape that looks different. Then all of a sudden everybody can do math in their head. They don't have a head anymore. So
do we?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Where it if this consciousness exists outside of us, and then we leave our physical body, then it does make sense that you would be able to think in different ways. Hey, we got Uncle Ziggs in the building. Welcome to the party. Yes, Deep Talks indeed. This show is dedicated to my late best friend who died 10 years ago. Today would have been his 33rd birthday, so we are talking about death. What a better way to celebrate. Welcome to the party. Glad you are here. I guess so. Try it again. So this is a ridiculous discussion because you can't actually define consciousness. Well, it's not a ridiculous discussion, but I agree that we can't just define it. It always comes down to the discrepancy in people's understanding of what consciousness is. People equate ego with it. Ego is not consciousness. I agree. I don't think that I'm doing that. And maybe your point did go over my head. Maybe if you can try to explain it in a different way. But the point still stands. The point stands that just because you are having thoughts does not mean that you exist. All that it means is that thoughts exist. Just because you are having an experience. Take a video game. Your video game character experiences a lot of different things. But obviously, that they're not conscious. But they think they are. Even the NPCs think that they're conscious. But are they?
Have awareness in that? Like, is consciousness awareness? Where it's
that's how I see it. I mean, I almost define it as awareness. I mean, because and in Roger Penrose's example, I mean, he's actually taking the portion of consciousness that does reason, that logically comes to conclusions as a chain of reasoning. And to me, that is consciousness at its highest point.
So that's fair. If you're going to say consciousness is awareness, I obviously they are different things, but because we don't have that understanding of exactly what consciousness is, when we're talking about consciousness, it's good to define that, okay, that's the context in which I am talking about it. So when he says consciousness, he's talking about awareness, experiential awareness, and that type of thing.
And so that's kind of like what he did wrote his book on. So yes, I believe that awareness would be absolutely fundamental. I see that as being heightened.
Okay.
You know, I see I do see it as almost adding more senses.
Okay.
And it's interesting because, you know, in near-death experiences, people have experiences where that they are able to talk about things that they saw and experienced that are confirmed and verified that took place in the surrounding area and another room in the hospital. You know, and
that's real.
That's very, very real.
For some reason, I heard somebody say that was proven to not be real or something like that.
No,
that's not real. People will absolutely experience near-death experiences, but the experience itself, very often, depending on what the experience is, obviously, doesn't comport with reality. Just because you experience something doesn't mean it comports with the real world. There's a lot of people who, in their experience, they have a penis, but they're a woman. That's your experience, but it's not real.
That person's wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that, in fact, you know, at this point, the amount of research that has gone into near-death experiences is just massive.
Okay.
And the one thing that everybody agrees on at this point is that,
I don't think there's anything that everybody agrees on with near-death experiences.
Yeah, it's real. Something happens where that, you know, at the moment of clinical death, and we're even talking about people who their hearts have stopped, and in some cases, there's not only not an EKG, there's not even an EEG, there's not brain activity in some case. Okay, and those people are able to come back and report having witnessed or observed things, and then people are able to verify that and say, yeah, that really happened, or yeah, that.
Wait. There was no brain activity, but you experienced something. Okay, I'm willing to accept that. But then how are you able to verify that? By what means are you verifying that this experience was real? I mean, he's saying there's so much science on this. And again, he's making it seem like the near-death experience, it sounds like he's talking about the experience of having a near-death experience, where you're close to death and you have some type of something going on. We know that our brains release DMT at the time of death. So that's not necessarily true, but you know, brain dead people can come back, but certainly it's not very common. Divine Run said, oh, NDE, didn't realize that. I thought you meant almost dying. Yeah. So that's why I capitalized it. Yeah. So the not just almost dying, but almost dying and having some type of out-of-body experience, some type of supernatural experience, something that otherwise wouldn't be able to, you know, seeing loved ones or seeing the light or all this stuff. You also have to remember that the idea of a near-death experience, the idea of seeing a big light, the idea of seeing your lost loved ones and so on and so forth is already part of the zeitgeist. We have movies and books and this and that about this stuff. So it makes sense that you would think that and you would experience something like that, even if it's not real. There are these things called delusions and hallucinations. And when your brain is releasing DMT, like you just smoked it up with Joe Rogan, then yeah, you're going to see some shit. But that doesn't mean that it's real. What does your soul look like? I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. Does your soul have to be a physical thing? Maybe it doesn't look like anything. Maybe it doesn't exist. I don't know. I do not know. And that's okay not to know.
That conversation took place. And so they can do it in a way that like not even conscious people could have done it
right.
who were standing in the room with them.
How?
You know, so
okay.
it's, you know, one of my favorite examples is...
okay, an example. So again, the question is, did the person have this experience? Because we dream. We have dreams. And those dreams are actually dreams. But what happens in the dream is not reality. So if he's just saying that in the same way that we have dreams, you can have a near-death experience, then okay, great, whatever. What I'm concerned about is, are these dreams or near-death experiences real? Do they comport with reality? Or says you don't die in your dreams because your brain cannot comprehend what death is like. Oh, wow, I never thought of it like that. I never thought of it like that. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. You don't die in your dreams because your brain cannot comprehend what death is like. Makes a lot of sense. I always thought, you kind of just turned off and you don't know what it was like before you were born. What makes you think you know what it's like after you died? What does your soul look like? Divine Rod said, hopefully like a pimp wearing some gaiters and a sharp suit.
A fellow that died on the table, and his surgeon,
but he didn't die on the table, right? Because you're about to talk about how he's still alive.
He had not met even, was an Asian dude. And this guy...
That's racist!
He had learned somewhere, he developed this practice for being sterile. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you're in surgery. You don't do things like go like that,
right.
Wipe your nose,
Oh, well, it's a good thing that they're teaching doctors to be sterile during surgery.
And so they're very sterile. And he did this thing. He created this practice for himself. This is not something that all surgeons do. In fact, I think he might be the only guy who does this. Okay.
Yeah, surgeons just, they never wash their hands and they always are picking their nose. What are you talking about, guy?
Okay. Where what he does is as soon as he's not doing something and he's asking other people to do some things, he puts his thumbs under his armpits like this, and he'll like point with his elbows. He'll be like, yeah, just.
Oh my God. If you guys know what I'm thinking of when he's doing this, let me see if I can find it super quick. Yes. Give me 1 second. Where is it? Come on. Give me the goods. Give me the goods. Give me 1 second. I got it right here. There we go. Come on. That's what I'm thinking of when he's talking. You guys have seen this movie, right? A Superstar. Oh my God. She's like, oh my God, I just sniffing. It's so great. It's amazing.
Where what he does is as soon as he's not doing something and he's asking other people to do some things, he puts his thumbs under his armpits like this, and he'll like point with his elbows. He'll be like, yeah, just, do this, do that. And so it looks funny because he's doing this, right? And so this guy, he dies on the table, right? And he comes back, and like the next day he's talking about this experience he had, and many of them experience things that seem to be beyond this reality, and so, but then they often will leave their body, they can see their surroundings, and then they will see the light, the proverbial light or blood.
See, this is what I'm talking about. You were already in the room before you went under. So why wouldn't you know what the room looked like? Not to mention, it's not like they're decorating. It's not like they're decorating operating rooms very differently. We all know what an operating room looks like. So none of this has anything to do with the reality of the experience. I'm not saying the experience didn't happen, just like I'm not saying that if you dreamt this, that, or the other, that you didn't have that dream. All I'm saying is it was just a dream. Listen to, come on.
They can see their surroundings, and then they will see the light, the proverbial light or...
struggle, stream, and Dr. Evil Genius was saying there's something going on with
loved ones have passed on. They'll maybe go to another place, and then they come back, and then they're back in sort of this reality, but still out of their body, and then back into their body, right? Well, so this guy, it kind of happened to him that way, and he said that like when he came back, he said, one of the things that puzzled me, he said, then I was floating over my body again, and he said I could see this doctor, and he looked like he was like acting like a duck. He had his arms up like this, and he looked like he was quacking like a duck.
So he saw what the doctor was doing. Great. Come on, what are we doing here? I can even see we've got space where it's loaded already.
Said that's what came to my mind, and he said I couldn't imagine why he was doing that.
Yeah.
So if that happened to me, I would not be against the idea that there's this idea of consciousness, and I'm in a state where my body is not acting, normally, and that there is something out there where you'd be able to get that. Sure. But you're saying it's been verified. How did you verify that? Really?
And then he was back in his body. Okay, so how do you explain something like that? And
you don't have to explain something like that. You don't have to explain something like that. If you can, great. But just because you can't explain something does not mean that you have the answer. It means that you can't explain it.
There are, at this point, thousands of examples like that, you know. Again,
and none of them prove anything.
Yeah, no, talking about the empirical evidence, you know, that's not repeatable.
Right.
You can't repeat that experiment. How do you measure how conscious he was?
Right.
You know, all you can go by is, well, he knew something that we can verify.
Right.
You can't measure it. You can't repeat it. And so people, hardcore scientists, tend to say, you know, whatever. I'm just not going to even go there. Or I'm not going to.
I'm not saying don't go there. I'm listening to you right now. You're just not giving us anything. And just think if it was that last thing you saw, a grown man acting like a duck. I mean, I'm sure there's worse things, but I would not be happy. I would not. Yeah. I mean, I'm with Divine Rod on that one.
I really believe it. And I think that is the definition of scientism, which has a negative connotation to it. And I think it should. It's where okay, I said at the beginning, I don't believe in anything without evidence, but I include non-empirical evidence. Some scientists say,
I don't believe anything without evidence, but non-evidence also counts as evidence.
What?
they don't believe anything without evidence, and they mean only empirical evidence. And
yes, we may believe things, we may think things, we may have an idea about things, but no, I am not going to say this is true until I can know that that is true. And it doesn't hurt me at all, but it will hurt you to make claims about the universe that you can't possibly know. Ari says, what he's talking about, multiple people have experienced. It's not unique. We can prove something like that is beyond physical represent. Okay, I was like, so we can't prove that that is beyond physical representation. And I'm not, yeah, this is a very common thing. But again, first we have to understand that the notion of a near-death experience is already in the zeitgeist, and that is already something that you're going to be thinking of. And I'm not saying that they don't happen. He is the one saying we can verify that all of these things are real. There's people who experience religious miracles all the time until cameras came around. Why is that? Why is that? Maybe it's because it wasn't real.
To me, you're limiting yourself if you say that. And so, yes, there are hundreds of examples like that. And everybody who studies it, even the ones who still remain skeptical and say, well, but there is no life after death, even they have to say something happens at the moment of death where people are able to retain consciousness as we understand it. And in some ways, it's even beyond our normal consciousness. But we don't know that that lasts forever. Maybe if they just died, maybe that would go away, you know.
Exactly. Maybe. And this and that. And as Uncle Zig said, nobody died and came back. They just didn't die. Or yet. Yeah. I mean, maybe. Anyone ever had an experience you just can't explain? I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who hasn't had an experience that they can't explain. Does that mean that there's unexplainable things or there's unexplained things? Those are two very, very different statements. Uncle Zig says, we change form when we die. How so? What form do we change into? Dan says, yes, I've seen a normal silent straight. Got him. Yeah, when your heart stops, you have about 20 minutes of brain activity. And so that's usually the marker for a near-death experience. Oh, my heart stopped for 3 minutes. Well, according to our resident fact checker here, you still got tenfold more time to experience things. And then, of course, we know with any type of psychedelics, there's huge time dilation. So 30 seconds can feel like 30 years. For all we know, a near-death experience is just the first part of the afterlife, where you can access it while you're still your consciousness is still connected to your body, but you know your body's in that state where your heart stops or whatever, and you're kind of getting towards there. And so this idea of going closer to the light, that doesn't have to be completely fake. It just doesn't mean that there's a real light there.
Yeah.
But even they have to admit, yes, that is real. That happens. So.
Right. Have you ever
Do they though?
watched the OA, the show on Netflix.
I have seen that show, but I don't think I've watched it. I think maybe I've seen an episode if you described it.
I think you would really enjoy it because it definitely deals with this whole thing. And there's basically a doctor who's essentially trying to prove that there is something.
Oh, yes. I did see a few
It's
episodes
really,
of that.
really
Yeah,
interesting.
okay.
And the people who wrote it, Britt and Zal, they're just, you can tell that they've spent so much time talking about this and thinking about it. And so the show is really well done. They just came out with season 2. But
really? Yes. You know what?
It's good.
Because I remember now watching season 1. That Netflix does that crazy thing, where like they come out with a season that's unbelievably good and everybody watches it, and then 5 years later they come out with season 2. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think
maybe I need to. Have you guys seen that? Is that something? Maybe I need to check that out. The OA. I've been hearing about that for a long time, but I feel like I tried to watch it and I was just like, meh. But now that you could speed stuff up, maybe I'll go back and check that out. We got a comment from Harley coming in. Let the delay go. We'll get to that. We'll jump back in, so I'm not stopping this every second. What some people believe is during that 20 minutes, your brain is trying to rationalize what is happening. That's why you start to see and experience things during that time. That makes so much more sense than any type of explanation of a near-death experience being a real thing and not just an experiential experience.
it's also because they came in not knowing exactly if the show would take off, and I think it has really struck a chord with people.
I'm
but
gonna
they
try that
plan
again.
to have like 5 seasons. Or something, so it's good.
All right, if they're going in, I'm gonna check it out because I do like the shows when they try to tackle these issues. I mean, of course, Black Mirror was amazing. What are some other ones? Like Severance is another a great show like that where they play with these sci-fi type notions, but it's not like older sci-fi where it was like fantasy. It's more sci-fi based on technology. I like to call it tech-fi to separate it because technically like zombies and vampires and stuff is sci-fi, but that's not the same thing as Black Mirror.
And it's like a riddle basically, so like you won't really know what's happening until the show's over.
Oh, but maybe that's why I hate shows like that.
So all of this, I'm interested to know what then happens when we dream or when we're sleeping. Are we not conscious when that happens?
We are conscious when we're dreaming. I mean, that's the funny thing. I mean, people who sort of study consciousness, which is becoming less and less a fringe area of science. Okay, more and more.
You can't ignore it. So
yeah, right. It's the thing is it's like it doesn't seem like there's ever a time where we truly lose consciousness. Even in the deepest parts of sleep, there is brainwave activity.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, I mean, we do even have a kind of dreaming state there. It's a much deeper dream. It's not like the REM sleep, like when you wake people up from that state, they can't remember dreams. But if you wake them up from a REM state, they usually can, if I remember correctly, with the stuff I've read. And, but
I've heard dreaming only happens during REM.
During REM. Yeah. Well, and now
I wasn't going to say anything because he's definitely, what did they say? So Kevin O'Hara is the guy, is a mathematics professor. He also studies physics, religion, and how they work together to answer the big question, why are we here? So this guy obviously has a lot of technical training in those areas, and it just goes to show you that experts, he was just talking about scientism, experts are just people. Now, they may have studied things more, but there's a lot of people who are experts in things that are completely diametrically opposed to whatever it is. I mean, especially in like politics. You have people who are in the weeds, super academic intellectuals with politics, and they're on opposite sides. So it can't be that simple. The ideal death. What is that? What's the ideal death? What is your ideal death, guys? That's what I want to know. How do you, we're all going out. How do you want to go out?
I'm don't take my word on any of this because I'm just trying to remember past reading.
All right, fair enough. Don't take his word on any of it.
It seems to me that people who suffer night terrors, like really horrifying nightmares, I thought I read that does not take place during REM sleep. It takes place in that deeper sleep, and somehow
maybe it's harder to wake up, which is
maybe
that makes a lot of sense if that is true. I'd always understood that he's talking about an ideal now, and I must have missed that. I don't know what what he was talking about, you know, how that is. But in the context of these night terrors and these different types of dreams that happen at a different time, and maybe have a deeper layer. So I partake in the ganja pretty heavily at night. You know, I don't really smoke during the day anymore, but to sleep, I definitely do. And it is one of the reasons that they use cannabis for PTSD is because it can help with suppressing the, you know, all the whatever the stuff is that makes you dream. And that's why if you are a heavy smoker and then you stop smoking, then like the entire month that the cannabinoids are getting out of your system, you will still or excuse me, you will have these super intense dreams because your body's used to that suppressant and it's not there. We were talking before about when, you know, after Akon died, I had been arrested and I was on probation for 2 years, and I was very scared of getting arrested again. And I just, you know, I just wanted to go back to my life and smoke and everything, but and so I didn't want to mess up my probation by smoking. And this was, you know, I was definitely self-medicating in not good ways, but I became a heavy alcoholic. But the thing, one of the big reasons, and you know, call an excuse if you want, but these dreams, these super intense, horribly scary dreams, never stopped. 2 years, every single night. It was like living in a horror movie, and it was the same 3 or 4 dreams. It would be either, you know, as we saw in one of the posts, that I would dream that I was hanging out with friends, and then Akon would come around the corner. Again, if you're just joining us, Akon is my friend who died. We're celebrating his birthday today. And he'd be like, just kidding. I didn't die. I'm here. He'd be like, I knew it. Oh, he's back. I would either have that kind of dream, or I would have a dream where either I was getting arrested or I was about to get caught with some type of drugs. And being on probation and being arrested, you know, that stuff definitely can give you at least mild PTSD, which it certainly did. And so these dreams, every single night, it was just like, and I couldn't wake up. I tried so hard to get into lucid dreaming, where you start to recognize that you are dreaming while you're dreaming, and it doesn't wake you up, and you just start to be able to control it. But what happened with me is that I was able to bring myself to realize that I was dreaming, but I didn't have any control over it. And so it was a little bit better in the sense that, like, okay, I know that this is a dream, but it felt so real, and I had no control over the situation, that it may as well have been real. It was that frightening at the time that it may have been real. And so if what he's talking about, where there is this other type of dream, that sounds definitely like what has been going on with me. Uncle Zig said, I lost my dad quickly and mom 8 months later with cancer. Very sorry to hear that, brother. That is tough. Weirdest time by far. Yeah. It's something that you know, you just don't, you don't get over it. You just learn how to deal with it. If you're spiritual, then dreams will mean something. Can you elaborate on that? I think I agree, but I'm not sure if I know what you mean. If you're spiritual, then dreams will mean something. What do you mean by that?
Something, yeah, something like that.
So we are still conscious.
And it seems in some way, yeah.
Right. But like,
see, I guess I think of it as okay, if consciousness expands, if it transcends the reality that we know, but there's a sense in which it's governed right now by the reality we know, then it makes sense to me that, you know, that consciousness could be mitigated or by the state of our brain. So when we sleep, is there a sense in which we have a lower degree of consciousness or something? I think so.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Hey, Ryan.
I've been kind of staying out of these death conversations, but I have a question about the governor kind of concept, and Brett talked about this as well, that if the brain is some sort of governor to consciousness, I mean, what happens with an engine when you take the governor off is, yes, you can go faster,
right? But
it also will go so fast that it blows up.
Yeah.
And therefore is not useful.
So he's using the comparison to the car, and he was saying that our brain governs how consciousness, how we experience consciousness. I'm not a super I don't know a lot about cars, but that's where he's gone. So let's back this up so we understand the exact thing, the exact
sort of governor to consciousness. I mean, what happens with an engine when you
why is this doing that? Oh, I know why.
take the governor off is yes, you can go faster,
Right.
but it also will go so fast that it blows up,
Yeah.
and therefore is not useful.
All right, we're at 30, 48.
It just
30, 48.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Hey, Ryan.
I've been kind of staying out of these death conversations, but I have a question about the governor kind of concept, and Brett talked about this as well, that if the brain is some sort of governor to consciousness, I mean, what happens with an engine when you take the governor off is yes, you can go faster,
Right.
but it also will go so fast that it blows up,
Yeah.
and therefore is not useful.
So again, saying that if the brain is governing how consciousness, how we experience consciousness, and then you take off a limiter by having this near-death experience or these types of dreams, then can it go too far? Now he's talking about a car blowing up. I don't think your brain is going to blow up because of dreams, but let's see what he has to say. But first, Harley says the word consciousness is what everybody debates over due to poor definition and meaning. I definitely agree with you, but this is unlike a lot of other things that I have an issue with people debating over due to poor definitions and meaning. With this, we don't have a good definition or meaning. And so that's fine for us to be debating these things because we don't have anything else. We don't have anything to go off of, but what do we think? What makes sense? What experiences from groups of people, all of that kind of stuff. What does this all mean? When it comes to things like what is a woman, there shouldn't be debates over due to poor definitions and meanings. So this is where the confusion makes sense because it's confusing. What is a woman is not a confusing question.
And it seems that we need some sort of restriction on anything that happens in order for it to be, we need parameter on anything in order for us to have any sort of lasting experience or any sort of meaningful experience. So my question would be if you do talk about this in regards to a governor and you did have that lifted off at the point of death, wouldn't you basically become just a drop in an ocean, sort of? Would there be any sort of individuality in the conscious experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Well, I know we don't know any of this. This is all just kind of stuff.
I mean, there's definitely,
Brett's coming to the mic.
Well,
oh, we got another one coming in. All right.
What I wanted to say was, the sages that talk about this sort of thing, when they reach the place that they call enlightenment, let's say, they describe it almost exactly the way that you just did, Ryan. That they cease to exist as a self.
Right.
And even some who experience the hero dose trip on psychedelics, they die.
Ego death.
As a self. And they just have oneness. But what's weird about...
So before he goes on, I want to make sure we're on the same page with that. So this idea of ego death, if you've never had a near-death experience or done psychedelics, is literally exactly what it sounds like. You have the experience of yourself. And most of us feel like our self is different from our body. So if I were to ask you, where is your self? Where are you in your body? Like, certainly you wouldn't say, like, I'm right here. You wouldn't say you're behind your knee. Most of us would say, like, I'm sitting right, I'm sitting right back behind my eyes, driving this meat vehicle. But that's not real. That there's no separate self entity from your hand or your knee or your hair or anything else. So that part is a complete illusion. And when you either have a near-death experience or take these psychedelics, you're able to dissolve that illusion. And you're able to see things very differently. And you do see that this exactly, Uncle Ziggs. You're able to see that this notion of I am so separate that I am here and you are there is just a perception. It's just a perception because you would think that you're there and I'm here, and neither of those are incorrect, but they're completely other things, different things. So before we go back into that, Harley says the difference The difference or the deference? I'm going to assume you typed that right. The difference between the word woman and the word conscious is the word woman has defining parameters. Consciousness does not have those parameters. So consciousness can be used to define multiple things. Agreed. 100%. That is where, and it makes it more difficult to have discussions about things like consciousness or the self, where we don't have a good parameters. When there's other things that do have good parameters, and people are treating it as if they don't have the parameters. That's part of why talking about consciousness is so difficult, because we really don't know what we're talking about. That is exactly why they call it the hard problem of consciousness. Hey, we got David Banner in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome to the party. Said acid and shrooms are not for everyone. I agree, but they sure as shit are for me. I after my first trip, I much prefer LSD to shrooms. After my first trip, I was like, wow, everybody should try this once. After my second trip, I was like, you're not really experiencing this thing called life that we're doing here if you haven't opened up those parts of your mind. The sober experience is such a, just like the spectrum of light, it's such a slim experience of that which is available to us. And so while it certainly is not for everyone, most people would absolutely be better off with at least one psychedelic experience. That is, and I'm not saying that you should, I'm just saying it's my opinion that would be the case. So don't take that as I'm telling you to go do anything. I'm just giving my opinion. Uncle Zig says, had LSD drops and shrooms at a psytrance festival. Nice. With MDA and vibes. We opened that third eye. Yes, sir. That sounds like a grand old time. David Mayer said, acid never scared me, but I get how it could fry someone's brain. I think, yeah, I think it has to do with, if you're not able to let go, and you feel like you have to control everything, then you're gonna have a bad time, because the whole point is to let go of that. The whole thing the whole idea is that we want to let go of this fake idea of control that we think that we have. Hey, Dan Jensen coming in. Good boy. He knew it. I say Dan Jensen's name and he knows exactly what Morty knows exactly what that means. Thank you so much. He definitely appreciates it. Yeah, definitely vibes. So again, I wanted to highlight this idea of ego death and separating yourself from yourself is a very, very real thing, and that's what they're getting into.
Oneness with everything. So what's weird about that, though, is then what is that you're aware of your oneness, yourself's oneness with all things. You yourself is aware of the death of yourself.
Yeah. So there must be some degree of understand that there's still an understanding of individuality, and I think that's a good example.
Oh, that's good.
Right. So that's a good example of what we were talking about. Person blind from birth. Once they see color, they understand it. So like maybe you become one, with the universe or whatever, and your consciousness is wildly expanded, but you now understand what it is to be an individual. You understand it, but you're not that anymore.
Right.
Absolutely. A lot of people think that, epiphanies that you'll have when you're having a trip, or it's just the drugs, dude. Okay. But I'm sober now, and I still think all the same things that I thought when I was tripping. Now, I don't see the same things. And I may have been, grounded a little bit without once it runs its course. But the thoughts that I had, the things that I saw, the experiences stick with you. And you are not that same self by any means once you have that kind of experience. However, Lou says the word death has defining parameters. Death is the irreversible cessation of all biological functions that sustain an organism. So it's not death we're talking about; it's consciousness. Yeah, I don't like the Is phraseology a word? I feel like I've been saying that a lot in the past couple of days. I don't know if that's a real word, but I don't like the phrasing. I also don't like when people take words like phrasing and turn it into phraseology. So I'm just going to say phrasing. So I don't like the phrasing of died and came back. It's silly. It's nonsensical, and it's also non-scientific. And it just makes me look at you sideways. I mean, died and come back. Like, I know what you're trying to say. I know the sentiment that you're expressing, but for you to say it like that is a little.
Right. So I wonder. So Ryan and I always have this fun kind of question. So if you were handed a pair of VR goggles and they said, you put these on and you're going to go to a place that feels real. You're going to be there for 80 years. You're not going to remember that you're just a guy wearing glasses for 2 hours.
Right.
And you're going to go through an entire 80-year life, suffering, pain, joy, all those things. And you'll gain 80 years of experience in 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's literally what an acid trip is like. There's a reason they say doing acid is like 30 years of therapy in one night. Because that's the time dilation in and of itself creates the ability for you to have these understandings that would normally take just the amount of time for you to process the words. You're not thinking in that same way. You're not using language to understand things in the same way. It's just a kind of osmosis of whatever is going on. And that's so we're talking about the same thing, but now it's just VR. It's not a biological thing with the drugs. So it says, right, you can't die and come back. We don't have a word to describe that, so that's why we use that statement, even though it's wrong. Agreed. I don't know what that means either. Oh, I didn't change the thing. Let me change the thing for Dan here.
Would you do it?
I would. Wouldn't even hesitate.
Who's to say we're not doing that right now?
I kind of think that's what we're doing.
The oneness of the universe is like,
That's
I
what
want to know what it's like to
yeah.
be an individual real quick.
To be honest,
All right, so
I wasn't going to go there, but you brought it up. That's kind of what I believe.
Okay.
I kind of think, I mean, there are some people who think that what God is.
Wait a minute. Because he thinks that he has these thoughts that are like original thoughts, and then he forgets that he had them.
Who, Kevin?
Yes. So
okay.
You
I'm
told me
somebody that it was brilliant. Oh wait, that was me.
So that's usually me. No, you brought something up and you told me why you believe this was true. And it had to do with simulation theory.
Oh yes, right.
And
why I don't believe
why you don't think that it's a simulation the way that people think it's a simulation.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So what's your version of simulation theory?
Well,
So he was saying that he believes that he is experiencing this VR thing that she just brought up. And then I guess he got away from it, and producer boy over here is getting us back on it.
It's why I think it can't be true. So some people make the argument that, so we can create a simulation, and we can create these characters, and so maybe we're characters in somebody's simulation, know. Now, there's already arguments that say, well, look, but the problem with that, you can look this up, it's called the Boltzmann brain. This guy, scientist, the problem is as soon as you say, well, maybe we're just, if we can create simulations and they get advanced enough, and then maybe those simulations can create simulations, and then they can create. I mean, it seems like the odds would be that we are a simulation.
Right.
But
exactly. If there's only one base reality, and then anybody, let's just assume that we are in reality and we're not in a simulation. Every person could theoretically create a simulation. A lot of you guys play The Sims. Within Sims, if the Sims got advanced enough that the Sims could then make their own simulations, then every sim in every real person's game of The Sims could then make their own, and it's fractal in that way. And so if that is possible, if one simulation is possible, then multiple simulations are possible. And if multiple simulations are possible, certainly to that degree, then just probabilistically, it doesn't make sense that we're in the one base reality. It makes more sense that we would be in one of the layers and layers and layers and layers of a simulation. Yeah, Total Recall or Vanilla Sky. It's all a simulation. It's all being planned out and tracked, and we would have no idea. How would we know? How would we know?
But the problem is as soon as you say that we're a simulation, you have no way of actually knowing what the higher reality would be like, and so therefore you have no way of knowing if it's common for them to even create simulations.
That does not in any way mean that it's not true. That just means, once again, that there's something that you don't know. And that is okay. Just because you don't know how something is done or how something happened doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Maybe in the simulated world they created, which was unbelievably difficult, they've made it easy for us to create,
Right.
So it could be a completely different thing. But the whole problem with that, and it goes back to consciousness, is that, okay, to create, to do it that way, the way we're talking about here, is that, if we create a simulation that, let's say, is capable of true AI and so forth, well, the way we think of that is we think of the simulation getting advanced enough that it can be autonomous, right? And then once it's autonomous, it can actually tell us things about our world.
Right.
Okay.
So that idea of being autonomous is kind of the bridge that we're trying to cross with these new AI bots. Whether it's the deep fake stuff or the voice simulators, or it's ChatGPT or Bing or all of these things. I lost it. What do you say?
Autonomous, right?
Oh yeah. Once it's not autonomous. And so it needs the base programming, the base algorithm, however it works, to be, or rather, you have to work within the algorithm, within the programming of the program. I keep doing that. I keep saying a word and then repeating the word. I hate doing that. But the point is that we're looking across that, and we're not there yet. So as advanced as some of these things can seem, and they can blow past the Turing test, it doesn't mean that they are conscious.
And then once it's autonomous, it can actually tell us things about our world,
right?
Okay, and do it better than we can,
right?
Maybe. So then there's a sense in which it's no longer under our authority,
right?
And so a true AI would always be that,
right?
Okay. So a little.
And your point is?
Well, in the last podcast, in this one, we also talked about the largest prime number.
Right.
Okay. So here's the thing: the largest.
Yeah, that was like 15 minutes of content ago. What do you mean the last podcast?
Prime number. There is no reality, not even God could create a reality in which you had distinct objects that you could call discrete numbers and call them integers and have an infinite number of them, and then have a set of them so big that anything beyond that set would never be a prime number. Not even God could create a reality like that.
So God can't do it. Not all powerful.
So in that very, very simple mathematical proof, and we have millions that are far more advanced than that, you and I now know something about any possible reality. And so whatever our consciousness is, if we were a simulation right now,
I missed that.
We know something.
Wait. What is the thing that we know about all realities? If I missed that. Real quick, Uncle Zig says, "Do you believe in fate and destiny?" Yes is the short answer. I wouldn't put it as fate and destiny. I would put it as determinism. I just believe that we live in a mechanical world, and everything is based on whatever caused the Big Bang. I have no idea, but whatever caused the Big Bang, and then from the Big Bang, everything has just been a very elongated chemical reaction. And so all of human history, all of Earth's history, and the entire history of the universe is based on something that happened before it. And so if we believe in cause and effect, and we believe in chemistry and physics and all of those things, then it doesn't leave room for anything to deviate from that. Are you trying to say it's just a theory? Do we have to go over what a scientific theory actually means?
About our maker's reality.
Oh yeah. He said we know about
like that. A set of them. Okay.
Right.
Okay, and do it better than we can. If we create a simulation,
he's trying to say this is going to teach us that we can know about all realities or simulations or something along that.
Let's say is capable of true AI and so forth. Well, the way we think of that is we think of the simulation getting advanced enough that it can be autonomous, right? Okay. And then once it's autonomous, it can actually tell us things about our world,
right?
Okay, right. And do it better than we can,
right? Maybe.
So then there's a sense in which it's no longer under our authority.
Right.
And so a true AI would always be that.
Right.
Okay. So a little while in the last podcast, in this one, we also talked about the largest prime number.
Right.
Okay. So here's the thing. A largest prime number, there is no reality, not even God could create a reality in which you had distinct objects that you could call discrete numbers and call them integers and have an infinite number of them, and then have a set of them so big that anything beyond that set would never be a prime number.
Why? Why is that? I don't understand why that is not like we have that. So whether there's a God or not, that is possible. Or is he saying a set beyond that would never be a prime number? I'm confused.
Not even God could create a reality like that. So in that very, very simple mathematical proof, and we have millions that are far more advanced than that, you and I now know something about any possible reality.
Did anybody catch what we know about all possible realities based on the notion that God can't create a world where there's prime numbers and then it stops and then there's more numbers? I think so, bro. I don't even know what he is talking about. So let's slow him down a little bit because he was getting a little bit more before. But
and so whatever our consciousness,
like, yeah, if you guys understood what the thing that we know about any possible reality based on what he just said, please let me know, because that just went right over my head. I kind of feel like it was just a bunch of word salad, but I could be dumb. So let me know.
If we were a simulation right now, we know something about our maker's reality.
What is it that we know about our maker's reality? Am I missing something?
And that maker was unable to keep us from knowing. We reasoned to it, and we now know something about it, right? So there's a sense in which we're kind of no longer trapped in the simulation. We know something about our maker's reality. And
what?
So in a very real sense, there would have to be a place at which we got to the point where, okay, well, we're no longer trapped in the simulation. We know as much about your world as you do. In fact, maybe we know more. And so I don't believe that we're just trapped in like a computer type simulation. And then also the arguments we talked about earlier with Penrose and everything, I don't even think you can really create true consciousness with an algorithm. So, but
he was doing so well. And like, there's little things here like, oh, I don't know if I agree with that, but like, okay. I know he's going left. He's going left. So hopefully she comes back in, because she asked great questions, and the producers are really good at keeping this on topic, because I just don't know what he's talking about. I just don't know what the point is that he's trying to make. What is it that has to be? Where is the connection between God can't create a world where there's prime numbers and then there's more numbers and none of those numbers are prime? That fact now teaches us that if we're in a simulation, now we know something about the reality, or at least the next level up. What is it that we know? And the fact that nobody else is saying anything, I'm gonna guess that we're all on the same page and being like, yeah, exactly.
Is it possible that there's a higher reality that can say, what we can do?
Sure.
Maybe we could do something with our own consciousness. Okay. Now that I can accept. I can accept that we could say, all right, let's do something to our own consciousness where that we limit it, we mitigate it for a time, and we cause ourselves to have these experiences, and then we gain something from those experiences.
Right.
I can imagine that. I can. And to be honest, I think that's probably something like what's happening. Maybe God said, what I want to do is I want to experience every possible reality there is. So I'm going to fracture my consciousness and put it into these creatures in this other reality. And I'm just going to live out life, in all of these. And each one of us is an iteration of that. And so when we die, we go back into that giant consciousness.
So then would there be the chance to then go back out? And so it's kind of this return to the mothership.
That's, right. Yeah. I mean,
so if based on her question, she seems to be understanding him better than we are. It sounds like what he is saying is in relation to what we were talking about before, where if you're on when you're tripping, then you break through, and the self that you were before you tripped, even though you're no longer tripping, you're no longer that self. And so I think he's saying if there is something, he's not saying that there is a thing, but if there is something that we can learn about that higher reality or the base reality, then that teaches us something about all possible. No, no, that doesn't make sense. I don't get it. I don't know. Harley Rose has a prime number, a whole number greater than 1 that cannot be exactly divided by any whole number other than itself and 1. Yep. The Yeah, I mean, the notion of prime numbers is a good example to demonstrate he was talking about before. The algorithm has to complete that list before it can determine that the list is endless. Whereas humans, we don't have to know, quote unquote, all of the prime numbers to know that it goes on forever. Hey, Dan's got to head out. Thank you so much for sponsoring the stream. I really do appreciate it. RIP to Akon. Yes, very, very much so. I really appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sponsoring the stream. You have a fantastic night, brother. Can we put a Dan in the chat, please? Shout out to Dan. Thank you so much, brother. Have a good one.
So, I mean, obviously, there's lots of religions out there that believe in reincarnation and so forth. And I think they come to that conclusion because they think, yeah, there's got to be something more, something like that. Like, right. Yeah.
That's the God of the Gaps argument.
You mean this could go on for infinity. I mean, you could just imagine infinite universes, infinite realities, infinite possible experiences.
Yeah, man. I just seen Ant-Man Quantumania,
for a grand consciousness to continue to have. And it seems to me that consciousness could grow through having those experiences, pulling them back, and then all of those experiences remain real for it, if we call it God, let's say. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, there is individuality in each one of those.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Harley says, I think he's saying there cannot be a reality that is not divided from another reality in order to create itself. There cannot be a reality that is not divided from another reality. So every reality has to come from a different reality. Okay, that makes sense. I didn't hear him saying that. You're making sense. If that's what he's saying, I agree. But that certainly did not sound like what he was saying to me. So I'm going to go on this because you seem to understand him better than I do. But this is where you were talking about how we have these discussions about consciousness and nobody really knows what they're talking about and so on and so forth. It's frustrating because you can be extremely smart, but as the further into the weeds you get with this conversation, the more fragmented it really is. And you're going to be the only person with what exactly you think consciousness is. You're going to be the only person who thinks that. Similarly to the notion of God, the idea that you have of God is a thing, but what everybody else thinks is kind of generally the same thing, but it's not the same thing, and so it makes it very difficult. And so you can find people who are religious who have this idea of God, and they fit that into the natural world as we understand things. And that usually is, no big deal. It's just a thing that you believe, and it's a framework for you to perceive things through, and hierarchy of morality and all that stuff. But then you also have people who will go super off the beaten path and use religion as their justification for believing things that make absolutely no sense. And it sounds like that's where this guy, he was on the right road for a long time, and then he took a quick detour, and then over time it just turned into whatever he's talking about now.
If we call it God, let's say. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, there is individuality in each one of those. Mm-hmm. And so it grows forever and ever and ever, and maybe it's even possible that it can have like a relationship with itself between these creatures who have had these experiences, and so you have created a community that maybe some religions call heaven.
I see Brett at the mic. It's okay.
So the theory of entanglement plays into this really nicely. But what I was going to say is the description that you gave of it, God, the absolute, being fragmented into all of these creatures to experience all the different experiences, maybe every possible experience. Mm-hmm. The earliest version of that is, I think, Kabbalism. because that's essentially what they say.
Yeah.
Harley, what's Kabbalism?
It is. That's
Occur.
right.
I thought he was going to say cannibalism. I'm like, what?
What's that?
Kabbalists basically say
Jewish mysticism.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
right. They basically say, there's this.
They put it with a C. That like with a K, I would have understood.
Ultimately, there's nothing more than just the light. What do they call that? The Heinz sauce or weird name? I don't know.
Heinz ketchup.
57.
I was going to say, that sounds like something you'd put on animal style.
Einsoff.
Heinz
Heinz
sauce.
off.
Einsoff. Yeah, sounds like Heinz.
So real quick, you said something that I think maybe everyone else understood, but I didn't quite. So when you said,
Oh, perfect. So she's not understanding something. We might be getting a little bit more understanding here.
the thing with prime numbers that you said.
So the belief would be that fundamental contradictions can't be true.
Okay. I'm with you. Fundamental contradictions cannot be true. I'm with you there.
Okay, something can't fundamentally be A cannot fundamentally be A and fundamentally be B at the same time if A and B are fundamentally different or fundamentally diametrically opposed. Okay.
You didn't need to add that. If A can't be A and also C at the same time unless A and C are exactly the same thing. So then you would just be saying A is A. So A cannot be C. I wouldn't use B because you said the word B. So A cannot be C because they're not the same thing. That's just is that epistemology? I don't know. That's just basic philosophy, though.
Okay, so whatever. If we come up with a definition that's
okay. So before we go on, Harley, our resident fact checker, says Jewish Kabbalah is a set of esoteric teachings meant to explain the relationship between the unchanging eternal God, the mysterious Ein Sof, quote, the infinite, and the mortal finite universe, which they believe is God's creation. It forms the foundation of mystical religions and interpretations within Judaism. Thank you, Harley, our resident fact checker.
precise enough for, let's say, love. Okay.
I want to back that up.
If we come up with a definition that's precise enough for, let's say, love.
Hey, we got traditionalist in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, welcome, welcome. AB squared plus AC squared equals BC squared. Is that true? I can't do that right now, but I'll take your word for it. Welcome to the party, brother.
Okay.
We're talking about love.
Hate is literally defined as the negation of love. It is the absence of love.
No, it's not. The opposite of love is not hate. It is apathy.
Okay, then there's no reality in which I can love you and hate you at the same time.
Tell me you've never been in a relationship without telling me you've never been in a relationship. You absolutely can love somebody and hate somebody at the same time, because those are very high on the end of passion for a thing. So I get what he's saying. And if he you can't love something and be apathetic about it at the same time. But they have a thing called a love-hate relationship. And maybe in the same, no, I was going to say maybe even in the same moment. If you've ever been in any kind of long-term relationship, if you've ever been at a job you really like, there's times when you can simultaneously have a love for something and hate it at the same time. Uncle Zig says in Islam, they have a mystic sect called Sufism. King Solomon had magic. Did he though? I'd like to see some proof on that. Holly says its practitioners tend to view the creator and the creation as a continuum rather than as discrete entities, and they desire to experience an intimacy with God. Fair enough. As a continuum rather than discrete entities. That makes sense. I mean, even if this is the problem, that when we talk about it like this, that creator and creation. Now, I still have an issue with creator because that implies agency. But if we take the word God out of it, now we're just having a discussion about the physical inner workings of the universe that we live in. And so, if there is a creator, then that I can see how, you know, all the stuff that we're talking about leads to the idea that they're not separate entities. But that hinges upon the idea that there is a conscious creator and not just a process that was the creator. Because a capital C creator is a thing, is a somebody. So it makes even more sense if you take that a step back and you can say the creation itself, the process of the creation, and what is created are on a continuum by nature, by the definitionally. Yeah, the architect. Is it there? Supreme being? How supreme? What can he do? How do you know that?
Okay.
Okay, because hate is fundamentally, by definition, it is the absence of love.
So you're saying
Again, no, it's not.
the prime number thing, that because it basically goes to infinity, there's no way for God to create a number that's bigger than that.
There's no way for God to create a prime number that's the biggest prime number, and that no matter what, no matter how far past it you go, you'll never come to another one.
Okay.
That's impossible.
Okay.
Because the way you prove it is you actually start out saying, well, let's assume there is a largest prime number.
Okay.
Okay, and we call it,
and then you just go to the next one.
M or N. We say N, and then we say, now let's take all the other prime numbers and put them in a list, and let's multiply them all together. All the way up to N. Okay, so that creates this massively huge number, right? And then it turns out that, so then whatever that's equal to, we call that M. We say, okay, so obviously that number is not prime because it's divisible by all the prime numbers, right? But then if you just add 1 to that number, now it's not divisible by any of these numbers, okay?
Yes, this is how prime numbers work. What does this have to do with consciousness?
Which means that either it's prime and it's clearly bigger than N, or its prime factorization would have to be made up of prime numbers, none of which are in this list, but presumably you had the whole list up to the biggest one, so all of its prime factorizations would have to be larger. So either way, there can't, so by starting...
Obviously, I could have told you that.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Exactly. This is not highbrow stuff like prime numbers or exactly, I brought up pi before. These irrational numbers that go on forever. This isn't, what is this? I don't understand what he is trying to say, that the fact that prime numbers exist, like we invented the integers. Now, the notion of a prime number, even though that's a construct that we created, that is inherent to the universe, that what we call a prime number is a real thing. But I don't understand what his point is. Harley said the biggest question between different religions is, were we created by something or from something? Created by something or from something? Are you making, so the way that I interpret that is being created by something would be like the Abrahamic religions, where there's a conscious being that has created you, or from something, meaning a process. Is that what you mean? Because if that's not what you mean, then that sounds like by something or from something. That sounds the same thing.
So it's actually a simple proof that most people can understand.
Yes, it is a simple proof most people can understand. So what is the larger point beyond the simple thing that most people can understand that you are trying to say?
You show them on paper, but so what that means then is that when you start off with the assumption that there is a largest prime number, it proves that there is no largest prime number.
You do not need to assume anything about prime numbers in order to prove that there is no largest prime number.
You know, you come to this contradiction where so that's how proof by contradiction works in logic and in mathematics. You start off with an assumption, and then every step that you make after that, is a step that has to be valid, that you can do, and then you come to a conclusion here that says the first thing isn't true. That can't be true. Okay. Or that some other thing that is true isn't true. Okay. And so then the problem is.
So it sounds like he's saying, like, if we know that, if we know that cats are mammals, right? And then, obviously I'm not using a mathematical example, but we know cats are mammals. And then through our proof, there is something that creates a contradiction that says that cats are not mammals. Then we know that that proof doesn't work. Okay. But what does that tell us affirmatively? Okay, it tells us that the proof doesn't work, but what does it tell us about the universe? What does it tell us about creation? What does it tell us about consciousness? It may very well be something profound, but you're not doing a good job of explaining that. Stishman says, prime numbers are only prime numbers because we decided to do numbers in decimals. Try looking at prime numbers in binary or hexamals. I'm not that familiar with different types of numbers, but it's while we created the what is it, the Arabic numerals, the integers that we're talking about. So there are no prime numbers in like Roman numerals. Imagine a sign on the one side says the statement on the other side is true. And on the other side, it says the statement on the other side is false. Mind blown. God must be real.
What?
There you go. That seems to be what he's saying in a lot more words. Maybe not about God, but just about whatever point he's trying to make. Is that because this thing about prime numbers, and God can't make the largest prime number, therefore we know everything about simulations.
What?
Uncle Zig says billions of galaxies and billions of universe is too complex to understand the magnificence. Jesus, I am all tongue today. I mean, too complex to understand the magnificence. I don't know that I would agree with that. Because all it is extrapolation. If you understand how our solar system works and you understand how our galaxy works, then you understand, then it makes sense that other galaxies would work the same way. And every test that we've done through, and we could see the entire observable universe that's 14 billion light years across. It all works the same. So what part of that is too complex to understand? And I don't know what these random words are supposed to. I don't know what that means.
This is by assuming what's wrong with your proof. Well, if you know all the steps are valid, then the only thing that can be wrong is your initial assumption.
Right.
And
okay, so again, if you have something that say, so a better example would be that cats are fish. And so then we go through all the proofs and we go, okay, what is a fish and what is a cat, and and it comes down to, cats are not, there's a contradiction within there. Then we can see that the original assumption that cats are fish is incorrect.
And so you now know the opposite of that assumption is true. Okay.
Which meaning cats are not fish. I don't really know where we're going with this, but.
So it's like inescapable. So yes, not even God could create a reality in which you had objects and say an infinite number of them.
You don't know what God can do, bro.
Yes, I do too.
I
do know.
So
I'm so glad that he said that. You don't know what God can do. Yeah, I do. I do know what God can do. Do you know? You don't know shit, motherfucker. You do not know anything. He says, how far will the universe expand before it stops and recedes back into itself? Or will it stop and recede back into itself? Maybe not. Uncle Zig says, Einstein had wormholes in his formula and didn't believe in black holes, even though black holes were calculated in it. Okay. Sure. Yes, that is a true thing.
So
I know he can't. I know he can't do that.
So real quick, I think what's so cool is this idea that if you transcend and you're not here, like a part of this anymore, but you can still exist in it. Like the near-death experiences where you can hover over your body, or even things like astral projection, which I don't really know what that is. Like
I know what it is. It's fake. No, I'm just kidding. I really don't know. But again, these would all be natural processes if they're real, and simple delusions if they're not.
I've watched a lot of videos of people who do it all the time. I've read books where the guy's like, this is how you do it. You just practice, blah, blah, blah. And there's been months of my life where I've like literally tried to sleep all day long just to try to be able to astral project. I'm not even kidding. That was during the time where we weren't working real jobs. But when you look at this ability to exist in other forms or other ways other than right here, right now, and even dreams can really come into that, because I, like last night, I remember being in a situation where I had feelings and it felt like a real existence. So we know that you can be aware and remember and do these things that are not in the actual form of human. But you can exist in the world where the humans exist, and you can observe things, you can float around, you can do all these different things.
Kind of like Ross from Friends. I mean, he didn't float around, but they certainly could have done an episode where he did.
So are you then, like, in doing psychedelics, are you then a part of another dimension? Have you transcended to another place of existence where, like right now, if we said the name of somebody who has passed away, could they just float in the room and be observing this conversation right now? Because
I've been saying Akon's name for 10 years and it hasn't happened. So I'm going to say no, but I'm very interested to see how he's going to answer this question. I really like her. What is her name? Rita Michelle? Rita Michelle. Definitely go subscribe to her. I just subscribed today from this. I mean, not the best guest, but her questions are really on point. She's definitely very smart and able to carry these conversations. And I really hope this guy is gonna redeem himself here, because if he claims something that cannot be known, then at least we'll know, oh, okay, you're full of BS. Because I'm not really sure right now. So black holes are actually one-way wormholes to a parallel universe or an alternate universe. Yep, the singularity. Astral projection is a term used in esotericism to describe an intentional out-of-body experience that assumes the existence of a subtle body called the astral body, or body of light, through which a consciousness can function separately from the physical body and travel through the astral plane. I mean, if you believe in that, sure. I would just like to see some type of proof. How is it that you can verify that is what's happening? I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying I would like to be able to verify that is really happening. And if you can't verify it and you're having this experience, then again, it just begs the question, how do you know that is not a delusion or just a dream?
They're like, oh, you called me, so yeah, I can go anywhere, so I'll chill with you for a second.
That would be amazing. I'd just be like, yo, Akon! And he's just going to chill with me all day, and he would.
I suppose, I mean, again, this is the place where it's like, I can't think of any way to give empirical evidence.
Right, but this is just
just my feeling.
Just Kevin.
Yeah, okay, so when I think about my parents, and they've, I guess I tend to think that your consciousness would be expansive enough that you could do things that we can't do now, which would include being aware of many, many things at one time, which we don't seem to be capable of doing.
No, you're not aware of the fact that you have headphones on, and also the fact that your name is Kevin?
What?
What are you saying, bro? Uncle says we have free will, kinda. How do we kinda have free will? We can go back to the ice cream definition, but I'm very interested in what kinda means. So we don't really have free will? We just kinda have free will? How does that work? I would love to hear how that works. Oh, before we go back in, Seditionalist has something here. Says, your soul is an accumulation of thoughts and feelings caused by electrical pulses in the neurosystem. When the body stops working, the pulses stop and the soul vanishes, doesn't it? Maybe, probably, most likely, yes, but maybe not. There's a lot of signs that, like, maybe there's something else, but that's where it ends. There's just signs that there might be something else. So until we can discover that there actually is something else, that something else can be defined, that something else can be measured, then we just have to throw up our hands and say, I don't know. This is not something that we know. And it seems like, I don't want to go too hard on this guy because, again, he seems a lot smarter than I am. But it's scary that you can be very, very adamantly driven by your beliefs. Or, I mean, we're all very adamantly driven by our beliefs, but these beliefs specifically, when they're very fringe, not because they're extreme, but just because not a lot of people go this far into the weeds, that you are now creating or making claims on things that you just can't know. How do you know these things?
It's hard for humans to even keep track of. If you tried to listen to 3 conversations at once, you can't really do it. You know?
You ever been in Discord? I can absolutely listen to 3 conversations at once.
You're a spy or something.
Yeah. So, but, you know, could I say, you know, hey, Dad, are you here right now or whatever? And he's aware of that. I think that's very possible. But it's also, it would be like a thing where he's aware of that, but he's aware of infinitely other things simultaneously, you know?
He's just like, if you're going to be somebody who goes on a podcast to talk about the mathematics of these types of things, and talking about proofs and this and that, then I don't want to listen to you just opine on what you think could maybe be, I don't know. You are there as an expert. And so if if you don't have expertise on it, then, you know, maybe you should decline the invitation. I mean, absolutely no shade to Rita, but she's only got like 2,000 subscribers. So it's not like, you know, this is a big opportunity. I just don't understand why he's there. I don't get it. So it just says, I compare free will to being in jail. You decide if and when you want to scratch your balls, but you don't decide if and when you get to do stuff outside your box. All right, let's do it. It's time for the ice cream thought experiment. So this is for Uncle Ziggs and Traditionalist. I would like you to please choose a flavor of ice cream. Any flavor you want. And you can make up a flavor. You could choose sherbet. You could choose yogurt. Just pick a flavor of ice cream. And tell me what it is. So Uncle Zig says English toffee. All right. And Traditionalist, what do you got? And Traditionalist got pistachio. So we have these 2 options. So if there was ever, if free will exists, the choice of what kind of ice cream to pick for no other reason than this conversation would probably be the freest type of choice that you could make. Right? So then let me ask you guys. Uncle Ziggs, why did you choose English toffee? And Traditionalist, why did you choose pistachio? Well, let's just sit on that. And we'll, I'm allergic, but pistachio is a very popular flavor. But so, you know, that take a second to think about that and give us a real answer on why did you choose it. And it could be just you don't know, or it could be a very simple answer. I had it yesterday. So it's inside your box. I'm assuming that you're talking about like this. So but it doesn't have to be inside your box. So you made the decision on your own to think of something inside your box. Did you choose for it to be inside your box? Uncle Zig says I blanked it first, and then it's the last one he had. Okay, great. So then when you were eating that ice cream, why did you choose to eat the English toffee? Point here is that you can continue to go back and to go back and to go back and say, why? Why did you choose that? Well, if you could easily, if you had free will, then the fact that that was the last one you had wouldn't dictate that that would be where your mind went. And so the fact that you are saying that you blanked it first and then you just picked the last one that you had, that doesn't sound like a free choice. That sounds like something that happened to you. Okay, so I know about pistachio. I know how it tastes. I know what it's like. How do you know about pistachio? You had it because, somebody gave it to you the first time. Why didn't you eat vanilla that time? Because you wanted to try something new. Why did you want to try something new? Because you could go back and back and back and back. And the point is that no matter what, it goes all the way back to your parents. Your parents decided to get it on and raise you as they did. You didn't have any choice in any of that. And so despite the fact that you're now grown, and I'm sure that your parents didn't choose English toffee or pistachio for you, then these are all decisions based on previous things that happened that you didn't choose. So what part of that is free? These are not free choices. These are choices based on things that happened before that you did not choose. So then the rest of the or the final thing is to say, if you have free will, then that means that you would have had the ability to go back in time, and if everything before the moment I asked you was exactly the same, that when you blanked, that you could have chosen a different flavor, but you didn't. Why would that be? With regards to, you can choose any flavor you want, you can invent a flavor, how can I if I don't know about it? Well, okay. That goes to my point that you can't. You don't have the free will to do that. Did work hard to get that toffee. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Harley says, astral is used to talk about the stars. The astral plane is a plane of stars. Stars are physical, and planes are metaphysical. So if it contains physical things, then the plane is not metaphysical. So the astral plane cannot exist. That is how you logic. Exactly. So did you choose to be nervous, or did I make you nervous by putting you on the spot? You're not choosing any of these things. And so when you even break it down further than that, if we accept that cause and effect exists in the world, then there is no scenario where you have a choice that is not based on things that didn't have a cause. And unless you choose all of those causes, then it's not free will. And even if you were to say it was a random choice, and if you were to turn back the clock, and because I just randomly threw out a flavor, well, that's not free will either. That's just randomness. So you have randomness and determinism. Nowhere in there does this notion of choosing free will, nowhere does that exist. There is no place on that spectrum for will. I don't know what this means, brother. I'm sorry.
And so
back to subs where we were.
But it would be like a thing where he's aware of that, but he's aware of infinitely other things simultaneously.
Oh yeah, this is the dead guy. Oh, he's gonna come, and you can call him, and he'll be back. And he's yes, yeah, exactly. Yep, this is all predetermined. There is no choices being made. There's the illusion of choice, just as there is the illusion of the self. But there's no such thing as a self that exists outside of your hand, outside of a strand of your hair. There's no self that exists. There's a body that has memories and all of these things. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that ability to make those choices. And this is an argument that I heard way, way long ago, before Sam Harris was a political pariah for, getting TDS and going crazy. He wrote a whole book on this and really convinced me. And I'm just using this ice cream example. No one has ever been able to push back enough to debunk this notion that there's determinism and there's randomness. Even in jail, you know what it's like to scratch your balls, but you don't know how it is to scratch your balls in Paris.
What?
I don't know if you're joking. I don't know. I'm trying to interpret that as like a real statement, but I kind of feel like you're joking. So the Hermetics believe in that manipulation. Who are the Hermetics and what manipulation are we talking about?
Yes,
so this is the dead guy.
So it's just like a different way to exist.
Right. His presence and knowing that I'm calling for him or talking to him, my gut feeling tells me that he would just see that in a completely different way now. Like,
who's he? The guy the dead guy?
I like he just wouldn't see the things that I think are important as being important anymore. And he wouldn't, I think of God, when I think of God loving us, I kind of think of it that way. I don't think he loves us in the way that we, my best analogy.
I agree with that. So is this going back to what we're talking about with the Jews, or was that a different thing? Yeah, you gotta, I mean, I talk a lot, so I need a little more context. Yeah, this is all bullshit. This is all bullshit. And this is exactly what I was talking about when they were talking about quantum entanglement and the slot experiment, the observer effect. People like Deepak Chopra will take the fact that we don't really, we all don't really understand quantum mechanics like that and turn it into the law of attraction, where, you can manifest your wealth by just thinking about it. And because atoms have a consciousness, you can see from the observer effect that if they know they're being watched, then that's not how that works. That's not how that works. So yeah, that is all BS, in my personal opinion. Always happy to change my mind, but
if you have a child, a baby, an infant, and the child needs medicine and hates the taste of it, or needs a shot or something, and just crying her little eyes out, and and it may break your heart, but like you'd never dream of like not giving it to her.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but you're still going to take it,
Right.
And just recognizing that, I know that this is just terrible for you right now, but I'm so far beyond your understanding of what terrible is that it doesn't really affect me. And, in the same way,
Interesting. Yeah. That's kind of like the character of Bran in Game of Thrones. I would say he's gotten to the.
That's an interesting parallel. And this is why I like her, because she's able to take these very esoteric ideas that this guy's talking about and bring it down to earth. And she's helping me understand this. So going back to free will, we have free will, but not really. So this is Dan Dennett's position, that the perception of being able to make that choice, the fact that nobody held a gun to your head to say pistachio or English toffee, is what we mean when we say free will. That is his response to, my parroting Sam Harris's version of free will. So Statistics goes on to say, you can choose to scratch them, going back to balls in prison. You can choose to scratch them, but not wherever you want. So your free will only extends within your jail box, not outside of it. That's why I compare it to jail. So there, I would agree with you. But even still, why are you scratching your balls? Are they itchy? Did you choose for them to be itchy? Or is it just fun? Did you choose for it to be fun? Or is that just a thing that you did and then, oh, wow, I like this? So again, it's not, this is not a free choice that is void of any causes. Because if it wasn't fun or it wasn't itchy, then you wouldn't scratch them. This is a good question in the context of free will that we're talking about. And I don't have a good answer for you. This is where I get stuck. Because, you know, as somebody who was a drug addict when I first learned about this, I was kind of in recovery. I don't really talk about it like that, but I kind of, you know, been trailing off of heavy addiction at that point. But I realized that, like, okay, how does this work if you know, like, I'm addicted to drugs and there's a line of drugs in front of me. I can choose to either do them or not do them. And I would want to choose not to do them because it's better for my life, but I'm not really choosing that. So if I'm not choosing that, then what's to stop me? Or so if I do it, then I'm not choosing that either. So where does the blame and the responsibility come in? And so I don't have a good answer for that. And the illusion of free will that we do have is why we would have manners and do make the choices that we at least think that we're making. But it's very much more complicated than that. If you choose to have balls in the first place, exactly. Wouldn't scratch them. What do you know? Maybe.
Point where he doesn't necessarily have feelings about the matter. Well, I guess it's
I don't remember.
the three.
You know.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like the character of Bran in Game of Thrones.
Bran the Broken. They just kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
I would say he's gotten to the point where he doesn't necessarily have feelings about the matter. Well, I guess it's the three. But like, he doesn't really have feelings on the matter. He just like knows and says what is.
Yeah, right.
And that's why a lot of people would say that there is this. Okay, but so that's the figure of God. Yeah. But we were listening to Joe Rogan, and what was the name of the guy that was on there?
C.T. Fletcher.
C.T.
Hey,
Fletcher.
shout out to C.T. Fletcher.
Death experience, essentially, where he had a heart transplant, but his doctors call it a pause, where, you know, he was dead for a moment and then he came back. So it wasn't necessarily like a true death.
No, it wasn't a true death or a false death or any other kind of death. It was not death.
But he was like, no, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like, I died and I went to a place and it was so peaceful.
Did you know? How could you possibly know that? How could you possibly know that? Without a shadow of a doubt. Well, maybe you should get under some trees and get some shadow, brother, because without some verification.
And he came back, so it wasn't necessarily like a true death. But he was like, no, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like, I died and I went to a place and it was so peaceful, 0% fear. And even now that he's here talking, he's like, I have no fear of death. I know that we move on from here.
That's a very common experience. Yeah, with people who have real hardcore near-death experiences, it totally changes them. No fear of death at all.
But it's also
so what does that have to do with the experience of consciousness? Why can't it just be that experiencing getting close to something very scary would help you not be as scared of that thing? Makes a lot of sense to me. No woo-woo, BS, consciousness, spirituality, nothing needed. If I got close to something very dangerous and didn't die, I would be less scared of it. I mean, death is still scary, but there's a lot of people who aren't afraid to die. There's soldiers who are at war right now who are like, let's go! Ready to die for whatever. This is very weak argumentation based on very strong intellectual basis. This is where you have to be careful, where you get into people who know more than you do about a thing, but don't necessarily know how to express those ideas. Because this guy may know a lot more than I do, but that doesn't mean that he knows how to communicate properly. So this one says, imagine your decisions actually came from the heart. Trying to make 60 to 90 micro decisions a minute, pausing in between everything, being dead 60 to 90 times a minute. What? Imagine your decisions actually came from the heart. Why would you be trying to make 60 to 90? Are you talking about like your heartbeat? And then in between beating hearts, you're considered dead? Is that what you're saying?
Like peaceful beyond peace.
Right.
And he was like, it was so comfortable. And he said he heard his mom. So what's interesting to me is is it maybe like,
you know what would be really interesting? If you heard from Ruth Bader Ginsburg or somebody that he didn't know. Obviously, if you're in this delusional state, then you would see somebody that you know, that you're familiar with. You would see something that you're familiar with. Why is that not the immediate assumption? When you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras.
the time, this is just obviously me just, you know, I like to think of these things like in all different ways. So I start thinking when he identifies it as his mom, and I don't think he said he saw her, he just heard her and like knew it was her there.
Yeah, because like that's crazy for somebody to be able to make out their mother's voice.
What?
Yeah.
That if the reason he recognized that it was her was because he was still so close to being who he was as a human. And if you pass away, maybe you do have a moment of greeting those, and then it just kind of dissipates and your life here doesn't become the thing that you hold on to or identify with.
Or maybe he was in a delusional state because he was close to death and the DMT was being released, and because he knows what his mom sounds like and probably has a very close relationship with his mom, or maybe doesn't have a close relationship with his mom and wishes he had a close relationship with his mom, he heard his mom's voice. How does that not make infinitely more sense? How does that not make infinitely more sense than whatever he just said? Susan said, apparently, if you don't have a pumping heart, you're definitely dead. So if your heart pauses, you're dead. And when it pumps, you're alive. That means you die momentarily after each beat. I mean, you could, well, no, because the like beating is a process. So the fact that it is continuing to do the thing. So your heartbeat, like if your heart stops, it is stopping the pattern of pumping. So because there's a momentary pause in constriction and extraction doesn't mean that it's not in that process. That's what is meant by your heart stops. It stops going through that process. Not that there's a momentary say I did it again. A momentary moment. A momentary moment in time where your heart is not moving, that means you're dead. I don't think that's what that means. I maybe that's what he claims. If that's the case, then that's, I mean, if you, I completely understand why people have these beliefs when they have these experiences, because again, I'm not saying that these experiences aren't happening. I'm just saying people are attributing them to the wrong things. We've all seen things that weren't there in the you know, we've all heard things that weren't there. We've all, your senses are not reliable. That's why eyewitness testimony in court is one of the weakest types of evidence. Because our senses are not very good. They're good enough for us to navigate the world. But we're still evolutionarily, we're still the same as, you know, essentially cavemen. And this high level thought that was brought on by language and our ability to use that language to further these types of discussions has advanced way quicker than our biology. So in between every beat of the 4 chambers, there's a flat line. Yeah, but that's part of the process. That's part of the process. So that's included. And so like that would be like saying if you're running a marathon and you actually, I don't know if this is a good example because I assume that they don't have super strict rules like you can't stop moving, but let's just say for okay, so let's say football game. If you are the quarterback on a team, when your team is on defense, Does that mean you are not in the game? You're not part of the game? Or you're just not right now active in the game? And are those different things? Because technically, while you're sitting on the bench, you are not in the game, but you're the active quarterback. So to say that, Brady wasn't in this game. Well, no. He just they're on defense right now. That's how I would interpret that. So Uncle says they use pig heart sometimes, gadgets when they're doing heart trance. Thought is mad. I don't know what these mean, brother. I need a little bit more context. You know what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying. And, these were posted minutes ago, so I don't know exactly what you're referring to. So if you could just give me a little more, I would love to. I love that you're, being part of the show. I just want to understand. So Susan says part of the process of getting a heart transplant, there's the not having an actual heart. Yes. But in a heart transplant, you're on what do they call it? A machine that pumps your blood for you. So that's like saying, to use our football example, Brady is the starting quarterback and he gets hurt from one play. So they take him out, let him catch his breath, and then he comes back in. Does that mean he didn't play the game? Does that mean he wasn't the quarterback for the game? Or is that just part of the process? Is if you get, a heavy hit that you just take a play, taking a play off. Oh, so you're saying when you're sneezing, the sneezing stops your heart. Yeah. So all these things about momentary moments where your heart is not beating is not the same thing as saying your heart stopped. That's a linguistic thing. When we say your heart stops, it means the process of beating, which includes a portion. Why is this not focusing? Which includes a moment where, because it's contracting and expanding, that at 2 points, when it's done expanding and going back to constricting, it has to be stopped. And same thing, when it goes to constrict and then it goes to expand, there has to be a moment where that direction is changed. But that the beating is that full process. It's not just the expansion or the contraction. It's the expanding and contraction. And so for something to expand and contract, then not being in motion, at least relative to, you could be running and you know what I mean? That doesn't mean that that's a different thing than saying your heart stopped beating. Or fans are cheering and shouting, not part of the game. Yeah, but I get what you're getting at, but that's not really what we're talking about. Because no, they're not part of the game. At all. You can have the game without any fans. You never play pickup football? If you play pickup football and you are the quarterback when you're on defense, are you not playing that game? Or are you just, as part of the game, playing when it's your turn? Hey, we got Just Talk About It in the building. What is up? Welcome to the party. Another awesome YouTuber. Please go check out her channel. Just dropped it in the chat. Welcome to the party. We are doing a birthday party for my late best friend. He died 10 years ago, would have been 33 today. And we are talking about, are we conscious after we die? Never need to apologize for being late. Is this stuff from, hey, and we got Trey in the building. Welcome, Trey. It says, after my sister died, sorry to hear, all I could, not that I didn't hear before, but condolences. After my sister died, all I could do was think about, was she in an afterlife? It consumed my mind. The thought of, is there afterlife at all? I had to go to therapy because it was literally driving me crazy. That's what religion will do for ya. I'm sorry to hear that. And I definitely understand where that comes from. As somebody who has been grappling with these types of issues most of my life. It's I was having the same types of thoughts. I was already a full-blown atheist by the time Akon died, but it was him being strongly Jewish and very active in his religion, I know that he believed different things, and actually, I don't know exactly what it is, but certainly there's some religious something about what happens when you die in Judaism. And his parents certainly believed that that is not the end. And it's not like I was looking to convince anybody of anything, but this is why I was Trey, I was saying, when we were first at the hospital, when Akon got in his accident and we weren't sure what was going to happen, I was ready to joke with him like, you're laying down on the job, what a lazy piece of shit. And then, we found out, and everybody burst into tears. And I just had a very surreal existential moment. Like, I literally said to everybody, like, wow, all right, this is our life now. This is our life now. And I have to give credit to the philosophical studying that I had done, because if I had still believed in this notion of heaven and hell, I would probably be right in your shoes, Trey. I'm sorry. I know exactly how difficult that can be. So definitely feel you there. Glad you're here, brother. Glad you are here. Where are we at? See, okay. Then we're on the same page. We are on the same page. Yes. Sorry. That's never fun. Never fun. All right, let's back this up a teeny bit.
Maybe you do have a moment of greeting those, and then it just kind of.
So actually, we just got a couple new people. Let's move it back a little bit.
It's just obviously me just, I like to think of these things like in all different ways. So I start thinking when he identifies it as his mom, and I don't think he said he saw her, he just heard her and like knew it was her there. Yeah. That if the reason he recognized that it was her was because he was still so close to being who he was as a human. And if you pass away, maybe you do have a moment of greeting those, and then it just kind of dissipates, and your life here doesn't become the thing that you hold on to or identify with.
Real quick, traditionalist, thank you for clearing that up. 100% agree.
And you eventually, it's almost like shedding a skin. So if you're super close to it, as in the people who are having the near-death experience right now, the reason, and people have astral projections where they have a family member who has passed away guide them. So they'll come to them and they'll be like, wait, I've seen a picture of you, but you're young and I've never met you before, but I know you're my uncle.
Yeah.
I've seen a picture of you. You're younger, but I know you're my uncle. So pictures remind me about how pictures work. They take a picture of a moment in time, and then later in time, just the picture grows up with, oh, no. So the only experience you would have of your uncle is that picture. It would make a lot more sense if your uncle came to you as an adult, as the person they died. So this is not a bad question, but it's it is a bad question. I understand I'm not trying to come down on you, but the reason this is a bad question is because this is akin to saying, do vegans believe in God? There's nothing about atheism that some atheists do believe in ghosts and some atheists don't believe in ghosts. Being an atheist has nothing to do with what you do believe in. It has to do with what you don't believe in. It doesn't have to do with what you do. It has to do with what you don't do. And do meaning subscribe to a religion. So personally, I don't believe in ghosts. There's many other atheists who I'm sure do believe in ghosts. But all atheists, the only thing that all atheists have in common is a lack of a belief in a god or gods. Everything else in the universe, to think or not think or feel or whatever else, it has nothing to do with atheism, and may be for some and may not be for others. No problem. Glad to answer. Always glad to talk about atheism. Excuse me. Susan says, I guess people who claim they had a near-death experience never really experienced like drugs like shrooms or LSD or other causes for strong hallucinations. I would bet that there's definitely people. Oh shit, my bad. There's definitely people who probably have, but I would say overwhelmingly, probably you're right.
Yeah, right.
And then they have this interaction, and it's like they know this person. So it's
from the picture.
Really interesting how when it goes from human to those spirits or those people who have passed on, it's like we identify who they are and they know who we are.
Yeah.
But
they know who you are because they are figments of your imagination.
Then if it goes the opposite direction, it's almost like they become more and more identified as the one thing versus like that's my aunt or my uncle. It's like they've
meld into the bigger right. I mean, I can imagine that.
The bigger what? Like, y'all two know what you're talking about, but you're not just sitting in a coffee shop having a conversation. You're putting on a podcast. You're trying to spread these ideas to people. So you can't start sentences with the claim and then not finish the sentence. What are you there for? She said, my therapist said, because I witnessed her die, I have an invested connection to want to know if something good or bad happened to her in the afterlife to help me grieve better. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how to address that without talking about our different beliefs. So I know that it was not super recently, and that you've definitely had time to go to therapy and grieve, which makes me very happy. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But if the atheistic perspective on this is that if you have an invested connection to want to know if something good or bad will happen to her in the afterlife, but you already from way long ago don't believe that you can know, then it makes it very easy, or much easier, to deal with the fact that you just don't know. In the same way that you don't know what color my pants are. Obviously, that is a much less serious situation, but I'm just trying to use an easy example. You don't know what color my pants are. Actually, you might, because I wear like the same pants for a week, and you guys see me jump into bed. But you don't know if I changed them today. If that was something that was as important to you as what happened to your sister, then it would take. Go lay down. It would take a lot of mental energy to determine that. And that is something that religion does that I just think isn't fair. But I don't want to go too far down that road when it comes to specific instances. And I agree. I agree with traditionalists.
For sure. I guess I tend to think, though, that this existence probably does have importance, though, even though it would. So, I think you mentioned in the podcast with Brett, you talked about, like, when middle school, they tell you it doesn't matter because they start looking and,
in high school. Mm-hmm.
But, the thing is, though, is it's like, but if you had no training at all in middle school, you didn't go to school at all, and then one day when you were 14, they tried to send you to the 9th grade, you'd be screwed, right? I mean, there's no way you could do it, right? Same with high school, and then going into college, there's no way with no high school training you could just walk into college at that level, And so, and what I also find interesting about that is that, if I'm teaching someone math, let's say, if I were doing it at the high school level, there is a place at which I have to stop helping them. Okay. I have to let them do it on their own. And so the experience that they have has to be one where I'm teaching, but not doing for. Mm-hmm. Okay. And because that experience cannot help them in college if I were to do it for them.
Right.
Okay. So we're starting again with a grounded example. High school student, at some point, you got to let them do it themselves. Otherwise, they're not going to learn to be able to do it themselves. All right.
And so my gut feeling is that one of the reasons that we cannot be just completely aware of whatever you want to call it, the spiritual realm that maybe is with us and transcends us at the same time, and we're in it, but our governor doesn't allow us to see it, is that the thing that we have to experience in this world has to be something that is experienced without knowing or having proof of that, or being able to experience it all the time. If you could just tap into it all the time, it would negate what we have to learn here.
Right.
It would be like me
Or
just
if you
doing all the
knew-
homework for one of my high school students. You
Right.
know, that
I lost the connection. I don't know what is the connection? I understand it's about an experience that you haven't had yet. But what is, I don't understand what we're talking about. So I just mean, if you have any stories like Trey was just talking about, if you have anything that you want to share, any ideas about what you think happens when we die, I'm not looking to bat down anybody's religious beliefs there. I'm just more interested in what people think, but just, and then obviously if not, then we'll have those conversations in Discord. But, since this is, something I want on record, just specifically for Akon, then I figured it would be appropriate if anybody wants to come up. So just says, dreams are a funny thing on their own. Apparently, in the time of black and white photos and TV, people would dream in black and white too. It's almost like it was based on something in reality that they then conjured up in their mind. Uncle Zig says, some mystics believe there is a waiting place, and we can tap into that place through dreams, and some through meds or medication. Or what about meditation? And okay, sure. I accept that is possible. Again, how can somebody else verify that? That is all I want when it comes to this kind of stuff. I understand you and you and you and you and you believe this, that, and that, and that. All I want to know is how you came to that conclusion. How is it that you know for sure that that the conclusion that you came to is the right one? And if you don't, then why are you picking a conclusion when you don't know that it's the right one? Why can't it just be that when you meditate, you have an experience and you don't know what it is? You just like that experience. Yeah, I don't, exactly. Word salad. Eating cheddar cheese before you sleep for some weird dreams. Not if you, yeah. I was talking about this before. When I was on probation for 2 years, usually they say the first 2 to 4 weeks after you stop smoking, then you'll have these crazy dreams. 2 years! 2 straight years. I would just have crazy, horrific, not like, but just like horrifying, very terrifying dreams. And I think it's PTSD from getting arrested, but I don't know. So we're almost done here. We have, what did we say? We had five votes. So one person. So who's the person who wanted to come up? Just let me know, and I'll drop the link for you, and we'll have a little chat. Because this guy's, I don't know about level. Let's back this up, because again, he had a decent point.
you have to experience.
That you have to experience doing the math problems in order to know that you can do the math problems. I'm with you there.
Experience in this world has to be something that is experienced without knowing or having proof of that, or being able to experience it all the time. If you could just tap.
Right. So again, in order to know that you can do these math problems on your own, you have to do the math problems on your own. Okay.
Tap into it all the time, it would negate what we have to learn here.
If you could tap into it all the time, it would negate what we have to learn right here. So as you're, no, Trey, I would love for you to come up, but it's up to you. But yeah, hey, Seditionalist, thank you so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. You brought some really interesting things to the chat today. As always, very much appreciate you. You have a good one. Social. I say that's not a sentence. I don't know what you mean, brother. So he's saying to tap into something that you have all the time, meaning the teacher you have all the time, that would negate what we have to learn right here. Okay. So we're talking about math problems. So you have a high school math problem, and you, at some point, you as the thing that you can tap into as the teacher, have to not do that so that they can experience that thing. All right, Uncle Ziggs, thank you for stopping by, brother. Thank you. Do very much appreciate it. I don't think I've seen you before, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I am live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you again. Have a good one. So yeah, I'll let's just finish this up, and actually, let me. You know what? Fuck it. Forget. I'll just go through. I do want to finish this. See if we can get anything out of this last example, but. Let's see. So again, if you can tap into it all the time, it would negate what we have to learn right here. So if you can tap into the teacher all the time, it negates the learning experience of solving the problems on your own. Okay. With you.
Right.
It would be like me
Or
just
if you
doing all the
knew-
homework for one of my
Okay,
high school
I'm with you.
students. You
Right.
know, that doesn't work.
Right.
Okay. Still with you.
Going back
You
to
know?
the VR style, like if you knew
Right.
you blah blah blah. But while
Right.
you're in
Well,
the VR, you don't know.
Yeah,
you
because
don't remember.
if you did know, it
Right.
would change the experience.
Exactly.
Right. That's right.
How is that connected to the VR experience?
And so if you absolutely knew, oh, I'm in a simulation here, there are certain experiences that would just never have the same weight.
So I think after listening to it 4 times, I think what he is saying is the experience of learning the math problems, learning how to do the math problems on your own would never have the same weight, or wouldn't be possible in that instance if you were just always asking the teacher. Okay. Well, now connect it back to anything that you've said before.
Exactly.
For you, you know. And
so is this almost in a sense, the term that Ryan and I have kind of talked about is almost like a training ground, that if you imagine that Earth and being a human being, potentially it could be the birthplace of consciousness, and you kind of have to go through, you have to earn the ability almost through experience to then transcend.
Well, that's exactly what so many religions believe.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Well,
isn't it interesting that
that's where I was getting at. This just sounds like religion with extra steps.
Hang on. Even the birthplace of, and not just consciousness. I'm not saying that as a whole, because I think you did a good job of talking about kind of what consciousness is on a grand scale or theoretical level. But
yeah, this seems to be all right. No problem, Trey. Well, you know, we'll cover it in Discord. But yeah, it seems to be that this is what he's saying. Or no. Actually not, because he said it's not the same. So he didn't say it's not true, but he said it negates the value of the experience. So it is true that if you always have the teacher there to give you the answers, then the experience of getting the answer correct, it cannot be the same as you doing it on your own. Okay. But what about the consciousness part? What does that mean? What does that mean for consciousness?
And not just consciousness. I'm not saying that as a whole, because I think you did a good job of talking about kind of what consciousness is on a grand scale or theoretical level. But in like ego consciousness, like an individualized person,
it's the birthplace of an ego consciousness,
right? That at some point you have to that everything has some sort of beginning, everything has some sort of birth, and maybe that's where reincarnation comes into play as well.
Now we're talking about reincarnation. What is going on? I'm just going to let this play through. There is 12 minutes left of this, and this is the last chapter. So I just want to see how far it goes. We probably won't even make it to the end because they don't have anything else to say, but let's just see.
Well, is that maybe there's a threshold in order to be able to function. You have to graduate, you know.
That's fine, Jess. So we can, we'll just all chat about it in Discord.
Just like you were talking about with learning math or tutoring somebody.
Unless you want the clip to put on your channel. If you want to do that, then we can just talk about what you think about death or spirituality or whatever. Up to you. Up to you. I just dropped the link again. It's up to you.
You have to hit a certain threshold, and if you don't,
we'll get you a good clip. Don't you worry.
Hit that threshold, you kind of have to go back and repeat the grade.
Yeah, right.
And this is maybe one of those grades. And
yeah,
I think that
That's Kabbalah.
Everything's Kabbalah to you.
Buddhists and Hindus believe in reincarnation, and
But do they believe reincarnation means you come back and you're that forever, like you're a tree forever? What is reincarnation?
They
fake
believe that you keep coming back in different forms to have experiences that you didn't complete, basically, in a very broad way.
And then eventually
but they can believe in like karma. So like if you're a bad person in your human life, well, you get to come back as a muskrat, and that's going to suck for you.
But isn't that kind of a...
So Harley says your ego is a field of consciousness awareness that identifies with your physical body. Okay, I'm with that. Because the ego believes it inhabits a body and lives in a material world, it thinks it can die. It thinks it can die? I've experienced ego death, so it absolutely can die. And that field of conscious awareness that identifies with your physical body, that can be untethered from your experience. You absolutely can have an experience that is not tied to your physical body. But that is just a matter of brain chemicals. That happens when you take drugs. And it's fun. But it's, and I mean, it's insightful and all that stuff, but I don't see them treading any new ground here or putting any meaning into any of this. They're just kind of, yeah, absolutely. The ego is a separate entity, or at least a separate part of maybe not a separate entity, but a separate part of your existence. And so the idea is that this may lead to the notion of consciousness, as we were saying before, not being an actual real thing, but just an illusion that the mind creates. It's a damn good illusion, but we know for a fact that our brain can trick us. We know for a fact that even if you know that you're looking at an optical illusion or something, that it will still optically elude. I know that's not the right terminology, but you know what I mean. So I don't know if I would say a separate entity, but definitely separate from like you as a person. You, Harley, is not the same thing as Harley's ego. That's how I would put that.
Oversimplified
idea
of karma.
Yes.
Yeah,
because
I think it's wildly oversimplified, in fact, but
so anyway, I'll pop out now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So with this kind of stuff, and that's why with this podcast, and I keep wanting to kind of formulate why I'm doing it. I keep learning why I'm doing it with each new one that I do. But I think when people start to think about what is real as much as you possibly can, which there's not a whole lot that's like graspable as like, this is for sure and this won't change in relation to death and like what happens.
Yep.
But if you can venture outside of that and not just say, well, I can't know, so like, I'll just never think about it.
Yeah.
That is a mischaracterization of at least people like me. Just because you can't know for sure doesn't mean you're not going to think about it. Now, I don't think that she was necessarily saying that anybody who doesn't know doesn't think about it, but that's not an accurate characterization of people who think the way I do, at least.
Yeah.
I think with having these podcasts and having these conversations to say, you can think about it. And when you do, it opens up the doors to your life being more meaningful.
I absolutely believe that. I couldn't have said it better. Yeah. And it's just, the physicist, Sean Carroll, he says to religious people, he says, look, you guys ought to be doing what we physicists do. What we do is we come up with a model for the universe that tries to explain everything and make sense of it. And so that seems like we should believe that, right? You guys ought to be doing that. You ought to be coming up with a model that
sounds good to me.
Explains things. And I took that to heart when I heard that years and years ago from him. And that's what I've tried to do. And the route that took for me was saying, I obviously can't throw away empirical evidence, but I have to somehow be able to embrace evidence that's clearly non-empirical.
Do you know?
And find a way to do that and bring those together. And so for me doing that, I came up with a model of reality that I think makes a lot more sense
to you
with God than without God, and with the idea of consciousness, life after death, like we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is just this is just the God of the Gaps argument on steroids. This is why I hate dogmatic thinking, because this guy, again, is obviously very intelligent. But he's starting with an assumption. He's starting with an assumption, not a hypothesis, an assumption. I think this is true. As opposed to, this may be true, let's test it. That is how you do science. And he was talking about scientism. How is this not scientism? If you're starting with an assumption, just like gender affirming care is starting with the assumption that anybody who says they need gender affirming care needs gender affirming care. That is not science. That is scientism.
But a couple of things. Number one, I have come to the conclusion that I think there are some things that, yes, are not knowable, and there's a reason that they're not knowable. It would be like someone giving you the answers to your homework.
Right.
Okay. So they
What? The reason something is unknowable is because if somebody gave you the answers, then you wouldn't know it?
What?
That doesn't make sense, friend.
Should be.
Right. They have to be unknowable in order for us to experience the things that we experience.
What?
But I will say this, that in creating that model, I came to a lot of truths or evidence for things to believe that are very compelling. And so, you know, when I believe those things, okay, those things then point to, here is what the meaning of life is, and here's what you ought to go do about it. Okay. And so for
Facts! Holly said, people don't fear death. People fear what happens after death. Fear of the unknown, which is different than fear, which is a different fear than the fear of the known. Either the fear of what happens after death or the fear of dying. I think you are absolutely correct that the notion of not being here anymore is scary, but only because of what leads up to death and what happens after death. 100%. 100% agree with you.
For me, the idea that, yes, this reality is maybe a birthplace for an ego consciousness, but there are these fundamental values, if you will, that are transcendent, that lead to whatever it is that, let's say, God, speaking religiously here for a moment, if God has some destiny for humanity, and I kind of think that. I don't think it's just individual. I think individuals grow, but there's probably a destiny for all conscious sentient beings or something, and that we're on this journey together, you know?
Can I ask a quick question? I know that we're getting short on time. We're at an hour right now.
Okay.
But since you are religious and you were a pastor and you still you're a Christian.
Yes.
What do you think about the Christian idea of heaven? Do you think that that's something that is?
I think it's
a possibility.
I think it's very, very, very primitive.
Well, okay.
I mean, yeah.
But I've heard. Well, yeah. I mean,
that's true. It's not there nearly as much as Christians make it out to be.
Sure. But the idea.
How could you possibly know that? What is it that you think you know about the afterlife? Oh, it's definitely not nearly there as much as Christian. It's there. It's not that much there.
What?
Please explain with your remaining 10 minutes, 8 minutes, how you have come to determine how much of the Christian's idea of what the Christian's idea of an afterlife actually is, speaking to individual Christians, and then determining that it is what they think it is, but not as much as what they think.
What?
Idea that there could be a community of people that hold similar beliefs, and that in some sort of next reality that there would be a place that would be
like a gathering place for all of
that
them?
would almost be built on what their corporate imagination has concocted in some way.
I mean,
that's a good question.
This is what
So the question is, would God make a place for people who think that that place exists because they think it exists? I mean, maybe.
what I believe at the moment. Okay. And you know,
I know we're reaching. I know this is all speculation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, and I'm a scientist, so, you know, my beliefs
Are you though? Are you though?
are subject to change. But so what I believe is that this consciousness that we have right now does have some kind of connection to the grand consciousness, but it's not one that, you know, it's just like, oh, okay, well, now I know exactly what to do. Because, like, you know, I mean, like, even with Jesus, it's even if you believe that he was the incarnation of God, it's really hard to imagine him being the example that he was meant to be, or that Christians say that he was going to be, if he remembered creating the universe.
True.
You know, I mean, and I think there's even evidence of that in the scriptures if you take them very seriously. You know, the thing with Satan in the desert, you know, and Satan tempts him. You know, I mean, the whole conversation there would have been silly if Jesus, like, remembered creating the universe.
Yeah. I mean, like, religion is great. I mean, but this thing would make it silly, right? Not like,
you know, well, if you're truly the Son of God, do this. And then Satan knew that he knew who he was, and Jesus knew that Satan knew that he knew who. The whole conversation.
All right, I'm done with this. I can't take any more of this, guys. I really appreciate that. You know, we were able to dig into this issue and dedicate this show to my fallen friend. My life has never been the same without him. And just speaking about these types of esoteric ideas about death has really helped me grieve with that. I never really had anybody super close to me die before that. And even since, because I saw him every day, I've had family members that have died, and I'm just kind of been like, all right, well, this isn't as, I didn't talk to them every day. And I sure as shit didn't talk to me every day. And I just, it's no longer a thing that is like, there's nobody in my life right now that if I lost them, it would be as severe as losing Akon, except maybe, not even maybe, yeah, except my dad. My dad's the only person in the entire universe that would it would be that severe to me. I don't know. Once you and that goes to kind of what they were saying about once you experience a certain thing or a certain degree of a thing, then it kind of primes you for that. But I don't know. I hope that if there is consciousness that exists after we die, and there is something that relates to the person Akon that I knew that's still out there, I think he absolutely would be proud of me for what we're doing here. Proud of me for just being able to do a show dedicated to him and his death, and still be me and do my thing. I was never really able to break out of my shell until he was gone, because he was such an encompassing person. He had so much to his personality that I didn't need to develop my personality. And similar to what they were talking about with the math problems, to use the example, I always had that math teacher. He was my math teacher. And so whenever a math question came up, I just be like, hey, you got this for me? And he did. He always did. And yeah, he's Jewish, but just said if he's a Christian and the Bible says Jesus was there in the beginning, his explanation is Jesus forgot he was there. Well, he's saying that Jesus, separate from God, didn't know that he was here to sacrifice himself. But I don't think that that's even, like, you Christians, please correct me, but I don't think that's even true. I'm pretty sure after a certain point, Jesus knew he was supposedly the Messiah, and that's why he was okay with it's up to you, Jess. If you want to come up, let's do it. I'm pretty sure. So if anyone wants to correct me on that, I'm pretty sure Jesus knew what he was doing after a certain point. Not in the years before. They skipped 18 years of his life in the Bible. But yes, thank you very much, Divine Rob. That means a lot. It's been tough. It's been a tough 10 years. And it's not even been 10 years yet, because it was September 25th. So we're coming up on the 10-year death anniversary, or whatever you want to call it. And I really thought that I would find some kind of, whether it was, it's so funny because especially early on, because I was so close to this dude, that, like, no homo, a bunch of love songs about missing people would move me and be like, oh my God, you are never coming back, and I do miss you. Oh my God. And these are love songs and stuff. But I mean, I didn't have anybody in my life like that. Since then, my relationship with my dad has gotten way better. But before that, it was only just getting to that level. But now I have you guys. And I mean, no offense, ain't none of you ever gonna replace Akon. But without anybody there that could replace Akon, the fact that you guys allow me to have this space where I can be me and I can talk about the things that I care about, he was the only one that provided that for me. And now you guys are here. And yeah, I started the channel and there was nobody watching the first time or whatever, but that's everybody when you start. And so it's if you guys didn't continue to come back, I probably wouldn't have either. And I don't think there's anything else in my life that I've put this much work into and that makes me feel like I'm doing something in the world. So thank you guys. Thank you. And I know that, again, if there is somewhere, some way Akon is looking down, he's very much appreciative of you guys for allowing me to have this, because he knows what it was like when I didn't. So don't worry about it, Jess. We'll head over to Discord. You don't got to worry about lighting over there. When your lighting is good, we'll do. You're always welcome to come up. So don't worry about that. But definitely check out Jess's channel. Let me drop that link again for you guys. I was just up there last week. We're talking about, what were we talking about? Like modern dating and stuff like that. It was a fun little panel we did. But yeah, so we are about to head over to Discord. If you are not in there, the Discord server is free to join. There's a link in the description. You just click it. You make an account. And got into, yeah, so the link is still there. If any, Trey, if you want to come up, Jess, if you want to come up, let me know. Or, I mean, just click the link. But if they don't come up, then we're going to be talking in Discord. And like I said, it is free to join. It's free right now. But it's not going to stay free. For you, it will if you join now. But once we reach a certain number of members, I'm cutting it off. And everybody who is in there, that's going to be our tight-knit little group, the day one people. And everybody else is going to have to pay to join. And they will want to, because it is fun and it is awesome. And we have a great time in there. So Trey got his ish working. So let's bring him up. Trey Williams in the building. What is good, brother? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
What's up, my brother? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm cool and cool. You know me. I can't say because of YouTube guidelines what I'm doing, but you know.
Oh, and we so I got you. All right, so let's do a three-way panel here. All right, we got Just Talk About It as well. Welcome. So Trey, let's why don't we start with you? What what did you think about all this? What did you have to say about death, about grief, about loss, any of that stuff?
Just when it comes to scientists kind of piss me off a little bit. Like not disrespectfully, but like, cause I get what they're saying and they make logical sense. But I think when it comes to things like death, logic doesn't make sense in it. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, there's no data you can show to prove what you're saying.
Yeah. And that sounds like what this guy's trying to do is take that's why he was saying, well, we have to definitely worry about empirical evidence, but also other evidence can work too. It's like, well, then what are we doing here, bro? What are we doing?
Yeah.
We're just trying to intellectualize it in a way that it's just not working.
And then I think it also, when we speak about grieving, we speak about death, I think it comes in many different ways. It also depends on, how you experience it. Like, you getting the news of Akon is a lot different than, like, me actually seeing my sister die.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, we both have the same grief because we lose someone that's very close to us, but it's two different things. Like when dude was like, stop smoking weed if you want weird dreams. If I don't smoke, I replay that whole day, like when I dream.
Yeah. No, so, I definitely agree with you that the fact that because like, so real quick, what happened with Akon was that in the town we grew up, there's an on-ramp to get on Route 1 that has like 4 merges in a row, and it's a really bad situation, and people are always like cutting across, and I guess they didn't see him or something, and they hit him, and they didn't catch the guy or anything. So they one of our friends was like, oh, we got to get the traffic cam footage and go after this and that. And I'm like, bro, I don't want to see that. That's not going to bring him back. And he's gone. So why don't we worry about ourselves? Because he's taken care of. Whatever you believe, he's good. Jess, what did you have to say on the topic? Jess?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep. What is yours?
Okay. Is it echoing or no? Last time I was echoing.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Okay, maybe my signal went out. Did I miss the question?
Well, I just what did you want to talk about when you wanted to come up? What did you want to talk about?
I don't know, what was the question?
Well, so we're just talking about death. We're talking about experiencing death, grieving loss, and I'm just open up the floor. Have you lost somebody close to you? Have you experienced this? Did you understand anything this guy was saying? You have any good ways to grieve when you did experience loss? Any of these kind of things?
I think, I don't know if there's an afterlife, but I do think it's possible that our spirits can go somewhere.
Yeah.
I've experienced a lot of death, so
Sorry to hear that.
I don't know. It's kind of like after so much, it just feels like normal, just like a part of life, and I can look at it like sometimes I feel insensitive because I'm like, oh, you should get everything in order, or have these talks before the person is gone because I mean, when you know how it is. You don't know what that person might have wanted for a home going service or something. So, or
Exactly. I think
financial issues are big. So I can talk about these things like matter of fact, but a lot of people can't, but I look at it like we're all gonna die. That's normal. So yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to what Trey was saying about the difference between him finding his sister versus me just hearing about an accident. It's definitely a different thing, but even still, the notion that I was already prepared that people die and that I'm not gonna, in my belief, they're probably not going anywhere. They're probably just rotting in a box in the ground. That all right, that's what it is, and it makes me sad because I'm missing out on spending time with him, but he's not suffering anywhere, and according to my beliefs, and that made it a lot easier to deal with in the first place.
Yeah, I think it hurts us more than them, because I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know where they go or what happens, but
Nobody does.
I guess I like to believe wherever they are, maybe it's good enough to where if they had the option to come back, they wouldn't.
I
So I
sure
don't
shit
know.
would not. If I could leave this and there's somewhere else to go and it's anything like a heaven, I am never coming back. I ain't haunting none of y'all motherfuckers. Oh
Yeah.
man. All right, so why don't
So
we?
I do have ideas about heaven too.
Okay.
I guess I was raised as a Christian, but I believe for other reasons other than what I was taught. But I
So
don't know. I feel like Christian definition is just heaven is just like with God, and hell is like without God. So I feel like you kind of exist either way. So I don't know if like I don't know because I'm not there. But in my mind, maybe the good people who just don't want to have a relationship with God, maybe they're just not suffering. They're just in a place where they're not with him, but still like around. But I don't know if that makes sense. So I don't think they're suffering. Maybe
none of it makes sense.
so
We
to
don't.
speak.
None of us know what is going to happen.
Yeah,
And
yeah, but I don't
the whole
know.
point. The whole point is that we can become more, maybe not comfortable, but more comfortable with the fact that, like you said, this is just a part of life. And it sucks for us when the person that we love leaves us, but for them, a lot of times you see the pain of like, oh, he died so young, or he had so much left. It's really about the people they leave behind because they're dead.
And I'll say I think it also is part of it. It also kind of leads to yourself. especially like when it's around someone your age or around your age that dies. It kind of makes you look at yourself and be like, man, what is to happen if I was to die? Like, where do I go? What do my people think of me? Like, what do people like? So I think it eventually comes back to you and like your internal feelings. Because like after a while, it made me think like, where do I go? Because like, yeah, you're gone. Yeah, I wonder if you're in heaven just to make me feel better at least. But then it makes you think about yourself like, well, damn, where do I go? Could I end up in hell? Could I end up in heaven? Could I end up nowhere? Could I end up back in my same life? Could I end up in a new life? Like, the possibilities go endless. And I think that's what eventually scares you.
Yeah. So let's close on this. A good question. Do you, I had it. I just lost it. God damn it. So what would you hope? What would you hope happens when we die? If you could, if you're God, you're making an afterlife. How would you make it? Trey, let's go to you.
Honestly, I would just hope like a family compound, like you and your ancestors is just like a peaceful place of you and the people before you that led to where you are. And I think, just it's weird, but just life now, but you're dead.
That would
Like,
be that wouldn't be a bad deal. Jess, how about you? What do you think happens when, or no? If you were God, how would you make the afterlife?
I think I would make it optional, where you can be a free spirit, or if you want another chance, maybe you can go through again, kind of like a reincarnation thing. Like, that was fun. Let me try life again or something, or let me just be
I like
free and
that.
watch, whatever. What do
I
you
like
think?
that. I like that, bringing the idea of choice. That I actually really like that. Where if you
that's
want this,
interesting.
if you want this idea of a traditional heaven, you got it. If you want to go back and live the exact life that you lived, you got it. If you want to go back and live as a Morty who just gets to sit here and eat treats all day, you can do that too. I like that. I like that. I think that's a good way to design things if you were God. So yeah, I mean this, it's a difficult conversation to have, and it could go on forever. But I think despite the fact that homeboy over here, was a little indirect. I think it sparked a good a conversation, and it allowed again. I'm thankful that it allowed me an opportunity to honor my boy. So before we say goodbye, if there is anything you want to shout out, Trey, let's go to you first. If you have any social media or anything like that, let the people know. The floor is yours.
Nothing to shout out as of right now, but just peace and blessings to everybody. Just enjoy life, man. Things happen, people die, so enjoy what you can and just live life as best as you can. But appreciate you, man. I'm gonna holler at you in Discord anyway, so I'll be seeing you in a few minutes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, brother. Oh, there's the horn. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate
And
it.
yeah, I'll see you in a few. All right, Jess. Oh wait, let's give you the floor. Tell them about what you do over on your channel, how to find you, and all of that good stuff.
Okay, so I have a channel. It's called Just Talk About It. So yeah, we just talk about whatever. I'm open. You can come. So I'm trying to get better at being consistent, like the Indian Jesus, and getting on schedule. But yeah, you can come over anytime.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to what we can talk about when we don't have to worry about the YouTube censors. Thank you so much for coming up, and thank all of you guys. I really do appreciate it. This was a super special thing to me. This is a special day to me. Especially 10 years out. That's a a big thing. The first few years there was a lot, especially when I was on Facebook, and Facebook was my main thing. There's these huge diatribes about what my life was like and what I was missing, and woe is me, and I wish I could have him back, and all of this stuff, and it didn't serve me. It didn't serve me to be so negative, and it made me realize that changing that around and celebrating what I did get from him. Especially like I said, when at his funeral there was so many people, and I know that maybe one or two people had a closer relationship to Akon than I did, and out of hundreds and hundreds of people. And the fact that he provided me with that, and then set me up without even me knowing, to have the tools on my own to pull myself up, even though it took a little while. It really he's just one of those. He's just one of those, and it becomes more and more and more apparent that it really is only the good that die young. So with that, guys, I want to say thank you again. RIP to everybody who is, not with us anymore. Hopefully they are in a better place, or at least they're not suffering. I hope we can at least agree on that part, regardless of what we believe. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to turn this into a celebration and not a sobbing fest. I really, really do appreciate that. I was worried about maybe I'm going to get a little emotional. I don't know. And you guys help keep it a party just like Akon would want. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Once again, I am your host, Lutch, a.k.a. the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Thank you so much for partying with me, guys. Until next time, I am out of here. Oh, big thank you to Dan, even though he's not here anymore. And big thank you to all of you guys, but especially Dan for sponsoring the stream. Now, I am out of here. See you in Discord. Peace.